to float at you. One of the great things about the United States of America, in fact, I would be so bold as to argue that it is the greatest thing about the United States of America. The greatest thing about this country is that you are given an inalienable right to the pursuit of happiness. To me, the most important thing, this is to me, it is subjective, but the most important thing to me in the pursuit of happiness is the ability to be yourself, if I may be cliche. And when I say be yourself, I mean unapologetically yourself. One of the reasons that I occasionally throw sometimes thinly veiled, sometimes not, sometimes passive-aggressive, sometimes outright aggressive takes of, men, leave people alone and let people do what they want to do and live who they want to live and love who they want to love, et cetera, is because that is the very first thing that we outlined in our nation's founding documents. Individualism is a part of what makes this country great. I would say it is the biggest part. However, I also think that the ability to understand time and place in which it is better for the greater good to participate with a team, to be involved on a team. And in the case of the country, I would like to believe that at some point we will reach a point where we can all participate on Team America, because I think there's a lot of times when that is kind of going by the wayside now. And I think a lot of people, to get philosophical for 2 seconds, I think a lot of people in a lot of high places profit off of us being team red, team blue, team left, team right, and not team red, white, and blue. Come back to that in a minute. I think that there is an issue sometimes because we are a country that prides itself in individualism. Your ability to be you. Be Christian, Muslim, Hindu, atheist, be gay, straight, bi, be whatever you want to be. Be a fan of that town or this team or whatever. But sometimes being raised with that concept of individualism can be hard to shake when it is time to say, my individualism needs to take a back seat to being a team member in order for goals to be accomplished. And I am talking both on the macro scale. This is the concept of tribalism versus being on a team as well. It's kind of different. It's kind of the same. The ability to say, I, in this moment, whether it is for this moment or it's for a season or for a decade, the ability to say, in this moment, for whatever length of time this moment might be, to put myself second most important to the team, to put myself behind the team. That's how we're going to accomplish our goal. This is why, over the years, so many wide receiver prima donnas get mocked openly because they put themselves ahead of the team. And then you end up with Terrell Owens doing sit-ups in his driveway, trying to talk to you about how that's his quarterback, man.
You also had a book, right?
I believe he did have a book.
Give me the
damn ball.
Yeah, that's it.
Give me the damn ball. And again, there's even times within being on a team that you have to say, as an individual, this is the niche that I fill. This is the role that I fill, and I'm better at this than everybody else. So make sure I have the opportunity to do this thing that I do better. Blah, 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 blah. I think we have, to some degree, an identity problem with a lot of specifically, and I'm going to be a boomer here for a minute, younger cats. I do. I think it is good that we teach the next generation, be yourself, unapologetically. However, I also think we've created a monster, and I do blame this on social media. Now I'm a boomer. We've created this monster where getting yourself seen, heard, the new term for it is go viral, has become something that people list as a priority over upholding the social contract. This is why you have YouTubers going out and harassing people in public to get views. They're making other people's days worse to get views. Well, I think that to some degree, that is bleeding over into sports. I think to some degree that has always been an issue, but I think it's progressively become worse. And for my very first piece of evidence, I am going to cite golf. Now, golf is an individual sport. We've had this conversation many times. When Scottie Scheffler steps on the tee at the U.S. Open, though there is a leaderboard and there are ex-golfers participating in that event, one of the reasons that I love golf as an individual sport is that nothing that anyone else does on the golf course technically impacts your game. Now, it may get to where you're standing on 18 and you have to have a birdie to go to a playoff or whatever, and then obviously you're playing for a score. But over the course of a 4-day event, or even if you're just out with the boys playing a Sunday leisurely round, nothing anybody else does. When I step on the tee box, what my buddy Andrew hits on his drive, whether he goes 295 down the pipe or sticks one 22 yards into the rough, it doesn't impact my shot. I still have to hit my shot. But the Ryder Cup is different because there are 5 sessions of golf in the Ryder Cup. 4 of them are team-oriented. 4 of them. The 2 morning on Friday and Saturday are alternating shots. One guy drives, the next guy hits the next shot from wherever the first guy's drive lands. Wherever that ball lands, the next guy hits that shot. And then next hole, you switch it around. The other guy drives, second guy hits the first guy's shot, yada, yada, yada. In the afternoon sessions, for those of you who do not pay attention, all 4 golfers hit their own golf balls. But if the first guy steps up and he pipes one down the fairway at 275 and they're in a great layup spot, now the other guy can get up there and playing team performance here. He can go up there and try to muscle that ball. And if he swings it way out into the grass, who cares? You've already got a teammate in a wonderful position. Or if a guy goes up there and he throws one up at the green on the approach and he lands it to 7 feet, you go, I trust that guy with a putter. So instead of landing in the safe zone and rolling it into a mid-range putt, I'm going for the stick. And if I go long, I come up short, I hit a hill and I roll off the green, whatever, it's fine. I trust that guy. It's team-oriented. And I think the reason that until we got to Sunday, where it is individual golf, we got our asses kicked, was because Team Europe, if you go watch all the social media videos that they posted leading up to the tournament, during the tournament, their sellies after the tournament, you will see a group of bros up there. You will see a group of guys on a bus that are chanting together. They're singing together. When they come off the golf course after their round, they talk about each other like a newly married couple the day after their first night of wedded bliss. Like, I love this guy. This guy's incredible. This guy was better for me than I was for me, and yada, yada, yada. It was genuinely wholesome to watch. Honestly, like, that's the best word I could come up with. I envied the relationship that everybody on that team had. And again, I chalked this up yesterday too, and we can go back more into this conversation because I do think there are spots for international sports where this comes into play. I don't think Americans really care about international sports outside of the international version of our sports, right? We care about international baseball. We care about international basketball. To some but a lesser degree, we care about international hockey. But like, outside of those sports, unless we have a dominant athlete, we don't really care about it. You add on to that the fact that Team USA very clearly just did not have the team chemistry that Team Europe did, and it led to the disaster that was Friday and Saturday that put us so far behind the 8 ball that a rally on Sunday became became impossible. I attribute that to Team Europe. And again, to go back to the international thing, Sergio Garcia a few years ago, before he got his first green jacket, said, I'd rather win the Ryder Cup than the Masters. That is the mindset about that tournament that Team Europe has. And because the Ryder Cup to them is every bit as prestigious as the Masters, they gel over that commonality. And when they showed up at Bethpage, you could not get through to them. They were that solidified in their team chemistry versus the American golfers who do not put the team Ryder Cup on the same level as they put the individual Masters or US Open or TPC or whatever it is that we are talking about. When you have guys that are more dialed in on the individual than they are on the team, you can't have a good team. You just can't. And I know that there are some strategies to get around that. We're going to talk coming up here in a moment from now about Dave Canales, who I think, while he wasn't wrong in anything he said, Dave Canales, I think, tried to take a team-first mentality in his post-game press conference after the Panthers got embarrassed by the Patriots. Yesterday, one of his players spoke out after that press conference about Dave, what he said, and how he handled the situation. And I want to take that and put that into perspective, utilizing the conversation we just had about the Ryder Cup. Team Europe came in as a solidified, gelled, organically built team to accomplish a team goal. Team USA showed up as a bunch of individuals that went, wouldn't it be nice if we won the Ryder Cup? They whooped us. Now I'd like to talk about the Panthers and kind of put that into that perspective based on the comments of Dave Canales and the comments of former Gamecock J.C. Horn. And we will do that next. I'm Rob Lonzo. The Rob Brown Show rolls on. It is the Fan Upstate.
All
right, guys. Good morning. Thanks for being here. Stay right there. I've got a live read, and we're coming right back. Morning, Cruz. Morning, Michael. Welcome in, fellas. Good to have the boys. For the rest of y'all lurking in the background, jump in the chat, man. The show's more fun with more voices on it.
They're not lurking. They're busy.
Lurking.
97.1 FM Spartanburg. Always streaming wherever you are on the Odyssey.
Upstate.
Early birds get the sports scoop. The Ron Brown Show. Now morning 6 to 10.
On the Fan, Upstate.
After the Panthers were embarrassed, in my ever so humble opinion, on Sunday on the road at the New England Patriots. And again, I believe nuance is important. New England was a team that I picked to go over their win total this year. It is a team I very much believe is on an upward trajectory. I very much think they got the right head coach in Mike Vrabel. I very much think that, Drake May is a dude that I owe some flowers to because I was not in on the cat. He looks very good. Not great yet, but very good. It's a good team. Much like I said about South Carolina and Vanderbilt. It is not that you lost to that team. That's a good team. It is how you lost to that team that is the problem. And with that loss to New England, it is not that you lost to the Patriots. It is the fact that you embarrassed yourself in the loss to the New England Patriots. So, Dave Canales in his post-game press conference. I played you a couple of clips yesterday. I would like to play you a couple more today. And it's not to hinge on what Canales said. It is more, I want you to hear the common sticking point that he said in 3 clips. I'm going to play them all back to back to back. Here is the first one.
This is when it's a full team effort like this. I have to put that on myself. I have to look at how I'm preparing the team, how we're going about our work. I have to look at that and compete to find an edge to get these guys to work together, to focus, so we can get the execution that we're seeing happen in our processes. But this is the only way to work through these things, is to go right back to work, to attack it head on. And, with the guys, I told them in the locker room, like, hey, a loss is a loss. We got to look at this stuff. We got to look in the mirror and figure out who we want to be as a team so that we can get the execution that we're calling for and that we're looking for.
Here's the second clip from Dave Canales' post-game press conference.
Absolutely. And that's where I start with myself, because again, I'm the common denominator when all phases aren't executing the way that I expect us to execute. I have to look into our processes, and I got to make sure that we're competing every single day the right way so that our guys are in position to be successful.
And then here is the third clip.
Well, just the collective execution. When it happens in all phases, I'm the common denominator, and I have to take responsibility for that. I have to make sure that I'm pushing the guys the right way. I have to evaluate what we're doing, how we're working, how we're preparing our guys. I felt confident about that part, but we're not getting the results. And so this is something where I have to really just press in and making sure that we're not overlooking anything and making sure we're having the right combination of guys out there in every phase.
So to give Dave Canales some credit here, Dave Canales made it very much about him, which a lot of people would not ordinarily do when things are not just going bad, but going tragically bad. I've actually got one more clip. Now, this is a different clip than the one before, but I still think that it matters. And that clip is from actually, now I can't find. Oh, yes, here it is. This is James Franklin after the Penn State loss at home in the whiteout game to the Oregon Ducks. Here is what the Oregon Ducks.
Yeah, Oregon Ducks. I mean, that team is defunct.
Right.
Back
There's
in the day,
there's got to be a sports team out there called the Dutch.
Back in the day, they were pretty good, though.
Yeah, back in like the 1600s.
They lost to the Pirates a bunch.
World superpower for a little while. All fell apart. Here's what James Franklin said.
After everything that's happened versus ranked teams, how do you personally maintain your belief?
Yeah. Again, I kind of look at the entire picture. I get that narrative, and it's really not a narrative. It's factual. It's the facts. I get it, but I try to look at the entire picture and what we've been able to do here. But at the end of the day, we got to find a way to win those games. I totally get it.
So there's James Franklin. He said, look, it's not a narrative. It's true. We talked about it yesterday. The record against ranked teams for James Franklin. He's like 4-17 in conference. He's like 3-12, I think. It's not great. And he said, it's not a narrative. It's the truth. That's what it is. Accountability matters from the guys that are in charge. While I'm not saying he never has, this was kind of the problem that I had with the Dabo Swinney press conference 2 weeks ago when he got up there and he said, well, the disappointment caught us by surprise, but not God. And I'm like, this is not the time to inject that in this moment. Like, take some accountability for where your team is, say what's wrong, and move on.
As far as Canales goes, it sounds like he's a cry for help. Like, get me out of here.
I don't hear get me out of here. Let me tell you what I hear, because I did have a similar reaction. And then like I said, I watched that post-game presser like 3 times on Sunday before we came in on Monday with these clips ready. I'll tell you what I think I hear right now out of Dave Canales. He's putting it on him, and I appreciate that. But because much like a number of Clemson fans theorized about said Dabo Swinney press conference, when the very next day, everybody in college football media was talking about Dabo's press conference, we had someone text the show and say, hey, Rob, what's the one thing you're not talking about today? The Clemson football team. You're not talking about Cade Klubnik. You're not talking about Antonio Williams. You're not talking about any of these guys. You're talking about Dabo. This is by design. This is Dabo taking the heat off of the players, putting it on himself because he knows he can take it, and he's giving them the opportunity to kind of have a safe space to figure out who they are and what they want to do from here. And I think there is some level of that with Dave Canales. Put it all on me so that the guys in the locker room figure it out. And my theory is not because of what Dave said. My theory is because of what 2 other players said. One of them was Derek Brown. In the post-game press conference in the locker room, Derek Brown said, if we are going to be a player-led team, then players have to lead. Derek Brown said that. And then J.C. Horn, in the same post-game media availability session, was asked about the comments of Dave Canales, and he said this.
What is he supposed to say, but he can't go out there and play. Like, we got to come ready to play. We got to be ready to play on all 3 phases, and we wasn't. Offense wasn't ready, defense wasn't ready, special team wasn't ready. So, as a team, look unprepared, supposed to fall on him, but you can't wake everybody up Sunday morning and have them ready to play. Like, we had a great week of practice. I can tell you that. We look prepared all week in practice. That don't mean you're going to play good on Sunday. You got to show up and do it, and that's not on him. We got to be ready. Follow me too, the DB, the team leaders, Chuba. We got to do a better job of upholding the standard in practice and having the guys ready too. So follow all of us, and not just on Coach Canales, even though that's what everybody going to say.
So JC says that's what he's got to say. He's the head coach. Of course he's got to say that. He's not going to come out and go, yeah, those players stink. You say as an NFL coach that the players are the problem? It's your last game. It's your last season as an NFL coach. So I think the way that this struck me, and I'll present my thought here, and then I want Lonzo's reaction to it. Because my reaction too was, that sounds like a coach who is looking for help. I didn't take it as, get me up out of here, this ain't the right spot, maybe I got in over my head. I took it more along the lines of, look, I'm going to try to get all the guns trained on me, but I need some folks in this locker room to start stepping up. Now, there was a game plan issue, right? Carolina at one point is down a couple of touchdowns. It's 3rd and 15, and not only do they run, but they run a slow developing off tackle run. I'm like, what are we doing? You're down 2 touchdowns, right? Like, I get trying to keep a defense off balance in an obvious passing situation every now and then, but not when you're down 2 scores. Like, yes, they're in a passing defense, but you still got to trust Bryce Young and throw the football in that spot. There were some parts of the game plan that I genuinely thought were just bad. But I also think that what JC said there was true. If I asked you who on that team stood out as a leader, as somebody who very clearly, even though it didn't work out, somebody who very clearly was trying to take the weight of that game and pick it up and carry it, was trying to be the guy that was in other guys' faces going, get your act together, get it in gear, let's go. I don't have one. And on a team that is supposed to have a few of them across the offensive line, J.C. Horn in the defensive backfield, Chuba Hubbard out of the running back spot, Bryce Young, who I have said the difference in just the optics of Bryce Young last year in the back half of the season where he was like throwing tutties and turning around and putting the hands up like Swaggy P, but a good one, versus Bryce Young now, who like gives nothing. Like there's nothing there. There's no, or it doesn't feel to me on the outside looking in that there is any player leadership on this team, and a good team has to have that. Instead, what I'm seeing out of this Carolina Panther team is a team that, with the exception of the blowout win over Atlanta, when things start going wrong, you don't see communication. You don't see talking. You don't see bench rants. You don't see guys on the field grabbing face masks and saying, get your ass in gear. You don't see any of that. And to me, to go back to our concept of team that we are talking about today, when guys, this is just as much a matter of individuality and selfishness coming ahead of the team mentality. When you are struggling and no one in a position to do something about it is stepping up to say, I'm going to put it on me to do something about it, that's when you have a bad football team. I agree, Lonzo. I think what Dave was saying here was a plea for help, but I think it was a message to that locker room saying, I'll take the heat, but I need you boys to figure out who the hell you are as a football team, and then I can coach to whatever that becomes.
All right. I hope that's what it was. I do. I hope you're right. I hope that's what it was, and hopefully they rally behind him and play like they did the week before and not how they played last week.
Yeah.
We'll find out. I don't know who they play this week, but we'll find out this week.
If you go back and you look at that Atlanta game, specifically in the second half when, Kirk Cousins comes in, it's very clear Atlanta has waved the white flag and are ready to just get ready for week 4. If you go back and you look,
they play the Dolphins.
Winnable football game,
yes.
Especially with no Tyreek. If you go back and look at the second half of that Atlanta game last week, look at the body language of that football team, specifically in the second half. Look at the body language of the defense. Guys are talking. Guys are interacting. Pre-snap, they are yelling. They are saying, move over, get in your spot, do this, do that. And then go look at the game against New England in the second half. None of that. There was no communication. There was no yelling. There was no, hey, you're in the wrong spot. You're in the wrong alignment. Get over there. There was none of that. It just looked, on both sides of the football, it just looked like 11 guys who were out there worried about what's my role in this play. What do I do? And that's part of being on a team, is doing your thing, whatever your thing would be. There was my junior year of high school. My team was going to the state championship game. I averaged like 2 minutes a game. Like I was the dude you threw out there when you needed a foul late, or when you were up 30. Let's get the lanky white dude some time, right? That was it. We had a pregame meeting with our head coach, Mark Tiza, before we got on the bus to go to the state championship. They did a pep rally for us, and then we all got on the bus. And after the pep rally, but before we loaded the buses to head to the state championship, Mark Tiza got the team in the bleachers in the gym, and he called us up one by one, and he said, here is what I believe your role on this team is. And he called me, when he brought me up, he called me the glue guy. He's like, Rob Brown's the glue guy. And a lot of guys on the team took that as an insult, but I did not. He said, let me tell you what Rob Brown's role on this team is. He is the dude that is going to go in there if we need a foul, and he's going to go run into the biggest, baddest dude, and he's going to take that guy down and give us the foul we need. He's going to put the body on line. He's going to be the guy that's going to take the charge. But more importantly, if you guys pay attention in the locker room, Rob Brown's the guy that's bouncing from locker to locker, player to player, and being the guy that is the go-between between some of you guys who probably don't have the relationship you need to have if we're going to be a state championship team. I took pride in that. I took pride in the fact that my family, on every game day that year, opened up our house for the entire basketball team to just come chill out together before the game and just build camaraderie. I took pride in that. And I'll never be able to say thank you to my parents enough. Rhonda, if you're listening, thank you. The point is, you've got to excel at what your role is, but you've also got to have some guys that step up and be leaders and call out guys who are not. And I don't see that out of Carolina. So in our conversation about team today, that's my problem with Carolina. Canales is doing his best, but he's asking for help in the locker room. And if there is one silver lining I can put out right now, it's that if nobody else, J.C. Horn recognized it and reacted. Derek Brown recognized and reacted. Now let's see if that translates to the football field against the Dolphins this weekend. Lonzo's role on this team is to just be the most sensual voice in the upstate when he does sports flashes.
Wow.
You even said that sexy.
You could not be more right. The Miami Dolphins picked up their first win of the year last night, beating the Jets 27-21. Tua Tagovailoa completed 17 of 25 passes for 177 yards and 2 touchdowns. Tyreek Hill was forced to leave the game with a dislocated knee and potentially further ligament damage, which will end his season. Denver Broncos got to 2-2 with a 28-3 win over the Bengals last night on the arm of Bo Nix, who completed 29 of 42 passes with 326 yards and a pair of touchdowns. The Bengals were held to just 53 yards and 125 passing yards, with no receivers recording more than 32 receiving yards, which is not good. Clippers star Kawhi Leonard has spoken out for the first time since allegations of salary cap circumvention by his team. Leonard denied that he was paid by the now bankrupt Aspiration for no services provided. Leonard called the story a conspiracy and labeled it as not accurate.
Up to the minute upstate traffic. Traffic is mostly unencumbered across the upstate right now. I am noticing early, slower speeds southbound 85 before and after 29, the Welford exit, and northbound 85 after 385. No delays, however. You'll want to avoid the Garlington-Woodruff intersection until it reopens. And if your route includes I-26 through Spartanburg, be aware of road inspection. From the News Talk 98.
Yeah. Unfiltered sports talk. Manufactured locally for the Carolinas. This is the Rob Brown Show. Get Rob. Only on
The Fan Upstate.
The Rob Brown Show back on your radio. It is the Fan Upstate. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Rob Brown, the great one, Lonzo, and you. Be a part of the radio program. 844-326-3663 is the number. If you'd like to jump in, we certainly would love for you to. You can use that same number to text us on the Hub City Spartan Burgers text line, 844-326-3663. This is usually the case, and it is usually the case when the football teams that we cover primarily are not good. Tuesday's quiet. I need you to pick it up, people. I am a firm believer that the show is better with more voices on it. And yes, I am talking about you. So, 844-326-3663. Call in and be on the air. You can also text that number with your takes. Coming up on the show today, here's what we've got for you. Coming up later on in the next hour of the show, starting at 8 a.m., the lovely Lulu Kesin is going to join us to talk a little Gamecocks. She normally joins us on Thursdays, but Lulu is headed up to New York, over the next couple of days. So Lulu, kind enough to give us some time this beautiful Tuesday morning. We'll check in with her thoughts on the Gamecocks after their win over the Kentucky Wildcats this weekend. Find out exactly what she thinks went right and if they can carry it on from there. Coming up in the final segment of this show, while I do not ordinarily put a bunch of baseball in the money hour, which is, of course, 7 to 8, when all of you unfortunate sons of guns have to go to your jobs and do responsibility things for the day. Sucks to be you. We are going to put baseball in the drive hour this hour because the Major League Baseball postseason begins this very day. We have games at 1, 3, 6, and 9 o'clock. We'll reset the bracket for you, and I will give you my picks, predictions, and prognostications for both the Wild Card Series and give you my pre-postseason World Series participants out of the American League and the National League, as well as who I believe will be bringing home the crown this year.
So the Yankees could win the whole thing, right?
The Yankees can win the whole
Which
thing,
would
right?
make a lot of people angry.
Which would make a lot of people angry.
Okay, I'm rooting for the Yankees.
However, I am not picking the Yankees, nor am I picking the Los Angeles Dodgers.
I guess we'll have to find out later on.
We sure will. What a tease it is. We've got your water cooler cheat sheet here. I've got another conversation that I wanted to have. If you missed the first hour of the show, the theme of the day today, because when I look at the teams that we primarily cover, I am talking about the Carolina Panthers in the NFL. I am talking about the South Carolina Gamecocks and the Clemson Tigers in college football. And I can even go so far as to extrapolate this to the Atlanta Braves in the disastrous 2025 season that they had. I can extrapolate this and I can apply it to the Carolina Hurricanes, who had been a team in the NHL, as we are very close to NHL opening day as well, a team in the NHL that has done a wonderful job repeatedly getting close and consistently running into buzz saws that prevent them from hoisting another Stanley Cup. I can put this on there as well. The theory that I floated is, it is a wonderful thing that this country embraces, celebrates, is founded on, I would argue, individualism. But I do think that to some degree, we have lost what that should mean, and I think it's translated into the world of sports. Individualism is the right to be yourself. It is the right to do what you want to do, to work how and where you want to work, to be as successful or as lazy as you want to be. It is the right to worship how you wish to worship or not to. It is the right to love who you want to love or no one at all. It is the right to be unequivocally and unapologetically yourself. Despite the fact that there are a lot of people out there who are trying to stop a lot of other people from doing that, that is what the foundational core principle of this country is. And that's a good thing. But I think that to some degree, and this is bleeding over into sports, we have also taken that to mean that I should celebrate not wanting to put anything above me. And I'm not saying everyone is guilty of this, but I think a lot of people are. I think a lot of people have reached this mentality of, I should put me above everything. And I'm going to tell you, it makes it very difficult to reach your goals. And more importantly, for the individual and for teams, it makes it not just more difficult for you to reach your goal and for the team that you are participating in order to succeed, but I think it does a disservice to everyone around you when that is the case. I think it prevents you from recognizing spots where maybe you have received help or maybe you should receive help, but won't. I think there's a lot of that. And I've cited a couple of examples. I went with the Panthers in the last segment. In the post-game press conference after they were embarrassed by the New England Patriots, Dave Canales gave like 6 different answers where he said, it's on me. I've got to do this. I've got to do that. I've got to find out this. I've got to put the guys in a position to succeed, whatever. And since then, and I don't know if this will translate onto the football field or not. We'll find out Sunday when the Panthers take on the Dolphins in Miami. Since then, at least 2 players, and I'd be willing to bet that there are more, but at least 2 players, J.C. Horn and Derek Brown, 2 guys that, yes, I expect to be leaders of both the defense of this team, have come out and said, if we're going to be player-led, we need players to lead. We need guys to step up, because I also pointed out I haven't seen that on the football field. I am going to go with another NFL mentality. The Kansas City Chiefs had a friggin' dynasty going for a while. May still have one going after the win that they put together this weekend. The New England Patriots, I would argue, the greatest dynasty in the history of the National Football League. What is the one thing that we stamped with those teams? Great team. Had individual players, but there were very few points in time where it looked like guys were performing in a way that led you or us or anyone to believe that their individuality was more important than the efforts of the team to succeed. And maybe that is the system. Maybe like Bill Belichick, I firmly believe did. It's because you kick out anybody who does not buy in that way. Or like Andy Reid has done at Kansas City, when you get there, he's got a team that says, you're one of us, or you're not. You're OOU or you're OUT. And it's on you which one that is. I don't know. But I want to keep that discussion going. And we will do that, as mentioned, with a couple of other teams that I want to talk about this morning. That being said, it is 7:08. You have less than 52 minutes until you've got to be to the office, until you have got to pretend that you care about your job. Here's what you're really going to do. You're going to kill time until Thursday, until we get some more college football on TV, some more pro football on TV, until the the NBA and NHL preseasons continue. I know what the goal is. It's kill time. Don't you worry, though, friends. That's why Lonzo and I are here to help, and that's why we, at 7 a.m., do this.
Are you ready for the playbook of the peculiar, the almanac of the absurd, and the encyclopedia of the extraordinary? Well, you better be, because we're diving headfirst into the 3 top stories that will have your coworkers saying, "No way!" even before they take their first bathroom break.
No.
Here we go. Welcome to the water cooler cheat sheet on the Fan Upstate.
Way. Water Cooler Cheat Sheet, top 3 sports stories you need to know before you get to the office and start talking sports with your supervisor, your manager, your coworkers, your IT guy, whoever you talk sports with.
That was very Dubai.
Dubai.
Why did I say Dubai?
I don't know. That's a different place.
It is.
Item number 1. A pair of Monday Night Football games yesterday evening wrapped up the National Football League week. The Miami Dolphins are now no longer a winless football team, 1-3 after a 27-21 win over the Jets. Credit to Justin Fields and the Jets. They tried to make it interesting at the end last night, scored a touchdown with a couple of minutes left, went for, did not successfully get the onside kick, but it did get a little dicier for Miami than they would have liked. Tua Tagovailoa, listen, we've talked about this with Bryce Young. I think some people look at yardage number and touchdown numbers, and if they are high, they go good game by the quarterback, and if they're low, they go bad game by the quarterback. Sometimes a quarterback can have a very good game with numbers that don't blow you off the page. Tua Tagovailoa was that last night. For a guy who has taken a lot of crap for performance this year, he had a very efficient game last night. 17 of 25 for 177 yards and a pair of touchdowns. Do you know what Tua Tagovailoa did last night? He took care of the football. He found the open guy, and he let the system work instead of trying to force it. We saw too many times this year that Tua was just rearing back and unleashing artillery down the field. Last night, he just said, where's the open guy? Let's get the ball to the playmakers and let the playmakers make plays. 17 of 25, $177, and 2 touchdowns. Devon Etienne had 20 carries for 99 yards and a tutty. The Dolphins ran for 123. Here's the thing. The Jets had a better day through the air. Justin Fields, who I think absolutely performed last night, 20 of 27, 226 yards and a touchdown. On the ground, Justin Fields ran 7 times for 81 yards. He and Breece Hall both had 81 yards, although it took Breece 14 carries to get there. The Jets ran for 197 yards last night. Justin Fields, however, had the only rushing touchdown, a 43-yard, pretty impressive run, to be honest with you. This team, if I gave you the stats, if I said this game is against the Miami Dolphins and the stats were Fields 20 of 27 for 226 and a touchdown, ran 7 for 81 and a touch, and Breece Hall had 14 carries for 81 yards. You had Garrett Wilson with 82 and a touch, Mason Taylor with 65. You'd probably assume that the Jets won that game over Miami, but Miami was just efficient with the football last night. The other part of this story, Tyreek Hill, done for the year, had a dislocated left knee. Very gruesome injury that took place to Tyreek Hill last night. Now, a dislocated knee is bad enough in itself. The problem is that when a knee dislocates, it tends to take a lot, most, sometimes all of those supporting ligaments around the knee out with it as well. It could be ACL, MCL, PCL, tears all the way around. We will get an update, I'm sure, from the Miami Dolphins later on tonight, but their season, despite picking up win number 1 last night, just got tougher. Even though Tyreek Hill has not really been a guy who has been a massive contributor to the offense this year, he's also a guy that, run a 9 route, take the lid off the defense, and let's work underneath that, which for a quarterback like Tua Tagovailoa, wildly important.
Do you find it disturbing that he's smiling and happy on the cart?
No, I don't.
Everyone deals with pain
in
their own way.
I think there was probably, if I had to guess, is definitely not a doctor. Way too dumb for that.
Plenty of memes about how happy he is he doesn't have to play on the team the rest.
Yeah, and again, I think that is one of those times that the internet is gross. I think he was probably first and foremost dealing with a hell of a lot of adrenaline, because the guy who noticed that his leg was facing 90 degrees the wrong way first was him. There's a picture of him. I think he's like kneeling on his right knee, looking at his left knee. You are looking straight at straight at Tyreek. His knee is pointed at you, and his foot's facing to the left. I think he saw what happened and probably just went into shock in that moment. 28-3, the Broncos get the better of what's left of the Bengals last night. Bo Nix, 29 of 42, 326, 2 touchdowns, and an interception. Former Ohio State University Buckeye J.K. Dobbins, 16 totes, 101 yards. Marvin Mims Jr. and Bo Nix also had rushing touchdowns. The story to me is the Bengals are cooked, my guy. They're cooked. Jake Browning, 14 of 25, 125 yards, no tutties, no picks. He was sacked 3 times for 19 yards. Cincinnati only rushed for 53 yards. 40 of those belonged to Chase Brown, but it was the receiving core. They are imploding. T. Higgins, 3 grabs, 32 yards. Chase Brown, 3 grabs, 31 yards. Jamar Chase, 5 grabs, 23 yards, and a full-out showdown with his coach on the sideline.
Would you trade for Kirk Cousins right now? Or try to bring him in there?
No, I don't.
You don't think he's an upgrade over Browning?
No, I think he's an upgrade over Browning. I just don't think it matters. And if I'm the Bengals, knowing that, I'm not going to say knowing that, but I'm like 95% sure, at least Higgins and probably Jamar Chase are going to force their way out at the end of the year. It is rebuild time for the Bengals. I cannot justify giving away even a 6th or a 7th round pick to the Falcons for Kirk Cousins to go 500 and miss the wild card. Like, there's no point. I would rather have as many drives. In fact, quite the opposite. If I'm Cincinnati, I am 1,000% a deadline seller at this point. I am selling everybody that I can get a haul of draft picks for.
Including the injured Joe Burrow?
Well, honestly, Joe's probably the only guy I keep on the roster. And that's only if he wants to. He may very well say, I'm done with this crap too. Right? Like, you guys have not put an offensive line in front of me that's ranked inside the top 20 in the NFL since I got here. I dragged you to a Super Bowl a few years ago. And what did I get back for it? Worse teams. You Jerry Jones to me. You went, we had some success, so we can downgrade a little bit because it's Joe Burrow. I need some help, guys. All right, let's get to item number 2. Won't spend a ton of time on this, but 3 NBA stories came out yesterday. NBA Media Day was yesterday, a time where every team sent out their coaches and players to stand in front of dorks with microphones like me and address the season upcoming. First and foremost, and probably the biggest story from yesterday, Kawhi Leonard spoke out for the first time since the Pablo Torre pod dropped that claimed the Clippers may or may not have been trying to circumvent the salary cap by having Kawhi Leonard be paid like a lot of money from a now bankrupt green banking company called Aspiration. Kawhi was asked about it yesterday at Media Day. He said, quote, I understand the full contract and the services that I had to do. I don't deal with the conspiracies or the clickbait analysis or journalism that is going on. Asked specifically by ESPN if he ever performed services for what Torre reported was a 4-year, $28 million contract, Leonard said, quote, I don't think it's accurate, but it's old. This is all new to you guys. The company went bankrupt a while ago. Yes, Kawhi, but do you understand we believe they went bankrupt because they had to give you the money? Do you understand that when we ask, did you perform services for this company that gave you a $29 million endorsement contract, which, by the way, was the amount of money to bring you to the contract you wanted to stay with the Clippers? We don't see any evidence of that. There's nothing on YouTube of you showing up at an event. There's no social media post, etc. This doesn't do anything for me, Kawhi. You didn't make it better. In fact, if anything, you made it worse. Out of the Lakers Media Day, JJ Redick, this was announced last week, got an extension from the LA Lakers. So did Luka Doncic over the offseason. The question is, what's next for LeBron James? He was asked yesterday at Media Day, and speaking of our concept of team philosophy tonight, whether or not you believe he is being honest is up to you. But LeBron James was the consummate team professional yesterday. Asked if his contract situation will affect his approach to the season this year, he said, quote, it will have no impact. I'm super excited about the challenges and the excitement of our team. We added some new guys. We've got another year under our belt with our coaching staff from last year, got a full year with Luka Doncic and another year with the guys that I've been with. So super excited about that. And I'm not worried about contracts at this point in my career. That doesn't bother me at all. Super humbled to even have a contract still, and to be able to play the game that I love at this part of my career and take full advantage of it. Consummate team guy, LeBron James. And Giannis Antetokounmpo said yesterday that his goal, get another championship. That's not a story. What is a story is how he said it. When he said, quote, I'm saying the same thing I've been saying my whole career. I want to be on a team that allows me and gives me a chance to win a championship.
I want to be on a team.
Mm-hmm. You caught that too, I see. Giannis laying the brickwork to get up out of Milwaukee and go play for a team that is actually willing to build a team around him. We'll talk more about that later on. Let me get a very quick item number 3. Very quick because, ladies and gentlemen, the 2025 Major League Baseball postseason is officially upon us. 4 games today, 4 wild card games over in the American League. We'll get started off at 1 o'clock with the Tigers, who had a 15.5 game lead with 2 months left in the season, ended up losing that division to the Cleveland Guardians. Their reward for doing so, they have to go on the road to Cleveland for the wild card best of 3. Then at 3 o'clock, the Padres, by checking in second in the NL West, earn a wild card. They will be on the road at another wild card team, the Chicago Cubs. That one live in Chicago at 3 p.m. At 6 o'clock, the Red Sox and Yankees, both wild card teams out of the AL East, will fight it out for the right to move on and take on the Blue Jays in round number 2. That game at Yankee Stadium at 6 p.m. And finally at 9 o'clock tonight, Reds-Dodgers is your 6-3 matchup in the National League. The Dodgers, of course, winning the NL West, but underachieving. They are the 3 seed. They play Cincinnati for the right to take on the 2 seed Philly. The Padres Cubs winner gets the Brewers. The Tigers Guardians winner gets the Mariners in the divisional round. To end this hour of the show, I will give you my wild card round picks, and I will give you my World Series picks. We talk baseball to wrap up this hour. When we come back, I want to continue with this concept, this thought about team mentality, because we talked about the Panthers and we talked about the Ryder Cup squad for Team USA. I'd like to look at the 2 local teams now. I'd like to look at South Carolina. I'd like to look at Clemson, and I'd like to put that lens on them and see if you guys believe that you would confidently and accurately describe those 2 teams as playing good team philosophy-based football. We do that next. Rob Alonzo and you, the Rob Brown Show's on your radio. It's the Fan Upstate. All right, guys, good morning. Hit the restroom. Y'all stay right there for me, please. And thank you.
That's 844-FAN-PHONE. This is the Rod Brown Show on the Fan Upstate.
One of the things that makes evaluating whether a team is a good team, and I would dare say makes it difficult, is that every team has different ways of communicating or not communicating outwardly. I would like to very quickly cite 2 NFL teams and then move back to the college teams that we cover primarily here in the upstate. I would like to start with the New England Patriots, who, of course, under the leadership of Bill Belichick and Tom Brady, organized what I firmly believe to be the greatest dynasty in the history of the National Football League. And I would like to talk about the Kansas City Chiefs, who are currently running the best active dynasty, maybe in American sports, period. Especially with the Dodgers failing to get where they wanted to get this year. We're going to talk baseball in the next segment. Both of those teams, I think it would be fair to say, were excellent when it came to team mentality. But it was for a different reason. The point here is that there is no one formula to be a team that has a great team mentality, which is something that you must have when you are going to or you want to be successful in sports. And I don't care if you are talking about little league teams, middle school teams, high school teams, college teams, pro teams. You have to have great team chemistry. With the New England Patriots, we all know Hoodie's coaching style when he was with the Pats. It was very closed door to everybody who wasn't a member of that football team. But I've also said my theory about Bill Belichick. Hoodie's not a great coach. He's not. And I think you're seeing that now. Now, granted, he's not in his prime anymore at North Carolina, but I don't think Hoodie was ever a great X's and O's coach. What I think Hoodie was very good at was roster construction and management, which is a massive part of being a great head coach. Roster construction and management. What did Hoodie do at New England that made the Patriots the Patriots? My belief has always been he knew what he had in Tom Brady. He wanted to take advantage of what he had in Tom Brady. So he brought in guys that were going to fit in well with Tom Brady. And then he said, this is 12's team. You are going to do what it takes to fill in on the New England Patriots. And if you can't or won't, we will send you somewhere else. You didn't get a lot of outward communication from that team. You didn't get a lot of sound bites out of players on that team that you could look at. In fact, I would even go, if you watch this team in its prime, there were plenty of wins where the Patriots would get a dub and you'd never know it based on behavior because they weren't hooting and hollering and having a great time. They were just being the Patriots. Then there's the Chiefs, who I believe are kind of the exact opposite way in just about every way. Andy Reid is very open with the media. He is very happy to answer questions, have discussions, talk football. He goes on podcasts. He goes on television shows. He is very willing to be open and outward facing. Travis Kelce is probably, by way of being Mr. Taylor Swift, and also, I don't know if he is anymore, but for a run there, the best tight end in the National Football League. Travis Kelce has become one of the most famous men in America. He's got the best, or most popular, I should say, best is subjective, the most popular sports podcast in the United States, along with his brother. That team, whether it is Patrick Mahomes or whether it has been any of the offensive linemen, like this team is perfectly happy to be outwardly facing exactly who they are. And I think at the crux of all of this conversation about team is that the best teams are going to have guys who are capable of, willing to be who they are, but view it as more important that they are who they are within the scope of the team being what the team is, which is also why I think why you saw, and Zoe, correct me if you think I misread this, after the 0-3 start to the season for the Chiefs, we didn't really see all of the pomp and circumstance out of guys like we have. I mean, Travis was still doing the pod with Jason, but like we weren't seeing a lot of the clips and the fits and the social presence out of the Chiefs that we saw. Now, if they put a run together, which they've done, 2 wins, including one of the Ravens this weekend, if they get to 6-3, 7-3, they're stacking dubs, we'll probably see that character come back out. But what you saw, or what you see, I think, is a team that allows the guys on it to be themselves, because the guys on it being themselves believe that folding into what the team is as a culture is more important. At least that's the read I get on it from the outside looking in.
They rallied together. They got their things fixed, at least it appears they have, after last week. And there's not a whole lot of complaining or anything like that. It's, I mean, you're talking about them being quiet because they're trying to figure out what's wrong.
Yeah, I agree. Versus a spot where I got A.J. Brown posting Instagram stories after a win where he says he is unhappy because he didn't get his numbers, which is at least what I inferred out of that.
And see, you talk about Travis Kelce. If anyone could be complaining, it would be him, because he doesn't get as many looks.
Oh, yeah.
Because on that team, whoever's got the hot hand, that's who they're throwing the ball to.
Without a doubt. And I mean, Mahomes is already known for spreading the ball around, but now he spreads the ball around and he's got a million options on that team. So the point here is, I think that teams are at their best when they allow the guys on it to openly be themselves, whoever they are, however they want to be that guy, but also have a group of guys that, while they have the freedom to do that, also look at it as, I need to be myself as long as it folds into what the team culture is, what the team mentality is. And as long as that happens, you've got a good team. So here is the question that I would ask of South Carolina Gamecock fans. Here is the question that I would ask out of Clemson Tiger fans. Do you believe, with the struggle, and yes, this is a slightly different conversation now that South Carolina got a win over Kentucky. Again, I'm not running out to buy you a bouquet of flowers. You better beat Kentucky. It's the worst Mark Stoops team he's had since he's been in Lexington. But you did what you were supposed to do, and you clearly outperformed a team that you were better than. Clemson has been outperformed by teams that they are better than. Now, the reaction to both has been interesting. I pointed out 2 weeks ago that after the second loss for South Carolina, it got real quiet in Columbia. We didn't see a lot of the clips. The press conference stuff that we heard from Shane Beamer was very football coachy, right? You didn't have a lot of the personality injected. We didn't hear a lot out of the players who are usually posting their own social media stuff. Didn't get a lot of that. Their social media kind of went quiet for a while. And I said, I'm worried about that. And I'm worried about that because it is the culture that is the most attractive thing about South Carolina. You don't have a trophy case to lean on. You don't have conference championships to lean on. You don't have any individual awards and accolades to lean on. What you have to sell guys on is, we're fun, man, and we're a pretty good football team. Well, when the pretty good football team part went away, the fun part went away as well. Now, I said that, and I'll say again, because we don't have full access to locker rooms, you don't know what the discussions are that are taking place inside locker rooms. We just know what the outward-facing effort is. And I said, I'm worried if it goes away. Let me play you a quick clip from Shane Beamer in the press conference after the win over Kentucky, reminding you that this rivalry has kind of become a baby rivalry because of the Mark Stoops comments a couple of years ago about the funny glasses and the dancing. And you'll remember the song that South Carolina was dancing to in the locker room when all that got said was Soulja Boy.
Shane, a little bit of a two-parter. One, no sunglasses right now. No sunglasses, but we were playing Soulja Boy in the locker room. So
he was having fun. He was laughing his way through this press conference. It was the Shane Beamer that, whether you like it or you don't like it, you think it's professional or not, you think it's over the top or not, whatever. It was the Shane Beamer that, to me, has to be him for this team to take the next step up into the second tier of the Southeastern Conference. I've got you in a third tier right now. To take it up to step 2 and eventually long-term to tier 1, that's the guy you've got to have. And so now I wonder, because paired with the concept of consistency, does that team that was flying around the field, does that team that looked like they were having fun playing Kentucky, do they have the team leaders to make sure that they are that same team this week? Because again, Your schedule is about to get absolutely brutal. Your schedule from this point, the rest of the ride, is going to be rough. You have got a lot of ranked teams ahead of you, starting on the road at night under the lights in Baton Rouge in Louisiana. Yeah, it's a team that just took an L. You think LSU's not going to be ticked off and ready to get that one back after the L to Ole Miss? Then you got Oklahoma, who looks good. Alabama just beat Georgia. Ole Miss just beat LSU. Texas A&M's a top 16. And, of course, doesn't matter if one team's good or bad. The Clemson game's always a game. Can you bring that mentality, that attitude back to the field against LSU under the lights, knowing that if you can, it is on the players to make it happen? Much like we said with Carolina, it's on the players to lead. Can they? Will they? Gamecock fans, Tiger fans, how would you define your team as a team right now? Back after this with some baseball talk on the Rob Brown Show in the Fan Upstate.
Real sports talk and real sports fans.
The Fan Upstate
Is the sports voice of you, the Upstate fan. Call 844-FAN-PHONE. That's 844-326-3663. The Fan Upstate.
I'm Chuck Sanders. Here's the Sports Flash presented by Progressive. Home game for Furman football this Saturday afternoon. They'll host East Tennessee State. The Paladins are coming off a 31-13 victory at Sanford. It was their second straight win.
straight to the gridiron. The maestro of the matchups and the keeper of all things cool in the sports world. This is the Rob Brown Show.
Oh, yeah. Lonzo's here, too.
This is the Fan Upstate.
The 2025 Major League Baseball postseason begins today, ladies and gentlemen. 4 games in the wild card round on tap. Remember, the wild card round is a best of 3 series that is played entirely at the home of the higher seed. We start off at 1 o'clock. The Tigers had a 15.5 game lead in the Central. They gave it all back. The Guardians took it from them. The Guardians could not catch the Mariners or the Jays, however, so they are the 3 seed by way of passing the Detroit Tigers at the buzzer. So the first wild card game and series will start today at 1 p.m. Detroit visiting Cleveland. Then we flip to the National League at 3 p.m. That is when the Cubs and the Padres will get after it. This one at Wrigley. Chicago checked in the wild card position after being unable to run down the Brew Crew in the NL Central. San Diego left behind late in the year by the LA Dodgers. That's your 5-4 matchup. This one at Wrigley for the 3-game series. At 6 p.m., we take it up to the Big Apple, to the Bronx, where the Yankees, by way of getting passed by Toronto in the AL East, will be the 4 seed, and they will host their AL East rivals, the Boston Red Sox, who earned the 5 seed in game 1 tonight at 6 o'clock. And then at 9 p.m., our final game of the evening, the Reds and the Dodgers. The Dodgers win the NL West, but do not reach the 100-win mark as predicted. That allows Philadelphia to take the 2 seed. LA drops to 3, but they will host the 6 seed Cincinnati Reds, who, despite losing on the final day, also saw the Mets lose, meaning that they did clinch that final spot. The Tigers-Guardians winner gets the 2-seeded Seattle. The Red Sox-Yankees winner gets the 1st seed in the AL. The Jays over in the NL. The Reds-Dodgers winner gets the 2-seeded Philadelphia Phillies. And the Padres-Cubs winner gets the number 1 seed in the National League, the Milwaukee Brewers. So let's make some picks, predictions, projections, and prognostications for both the wild card round and for the World Series as a whole. I will tell you that last night, Cody Decker and I recorded a very long podcast previewing the entire postseason. I will have that posted for you later on this afternoon. I will let you know on social when it drops. Follow me at the Rob Brown Show if you are a baseball guy and interested in that. Let's start off with what I think is something that I have gotten away from the last couple of years. There are 2 things that, with a shocking level of accuracy and regularity, you can bank on as an accurate indicator of how the playoffs are going to go. The first is a cliche that, especially if you are a Braves fan, you have heard screamed a lot over the past couple of years. The team that is the hottest going into the playoffs, ordinarily a very good pick to win in the playoffs. Well, there are only 2 of those that jump off the page, both in the National League and the American League. Well, one in the National League, one in the American League. In the National League, it's the Milwaukee Brewers. The reason that they are the 1 seed is because this team got white hot down the stretch. This team was able to distance themselves from Philadelphia, from LA, and most importantly, from the Chicago Cubs. With about 3 weeks left in the season, it looked like, perhaps, maybe, it looked like the Cubs might get their offense, which did sputter a number of times throughout the season, rolling again. It looked like PCA was going to come back on. Problem was, the Cubs pitching, which was pretty good for a good chunk of the year, kind of slowed up a little bit. Pitching matters. That's the second thing that you can gauge it on. Pitching wins in the playoffs. That's going to come into play here in just a moment from now. The Brewers and the Guardians are the 2 hottest teams that are entering this year's MLB postseason. As much as I think the Detroit Tigers are a better baseball team, I'm taking Cleveland in round number 1 over Detroit. Detroit is actually favored despite being the road team, and a lot of that has to do with the fact that Tarek Skubal is an absolute dog. That's your AL Cy Young winner this year. Here's the problem, and I pointed this out last night to Deck. Again, that interview will drop later on today. Tarek Skubal has lost his last 3 starts, or at least the team has lost Tarek Skubal's last 3 starts. 3 starts ago, Tarek Skubal took on the Miami Marlins. And credit to the Marlins because, again, nuance is kind of the name of the game on the Rob Brown Show. The Marlins played some pretty good baseball down the stretch. Sub-500 team, but we're playing the best baseball they played all year down the stretch. Skubal lost that game to the Marlins. Then Skubal lost his next 2 starts. And this is why I am kind of blown away that not only is Detroit favored in this matchup, but it's a pretty hefty favor. Tarek Skubal lost his last 2 games. They were both against the Cleveland Guardians. So you only get to throw Skubal for 1 game in a 3-game set. And I think a lot of people are just assuming that that is a win, which is fair. Tarek Skubal, you can pretty much assume most games he started was a win. But he's 0 for 3 in his last 3. And on top of that, the Tigers' bats to a large degree disappeared down the stretch. And on top of that, 2 of those losses for Skubal went to the Cleveland Guardians. And on top of that, despite the fact that at the trade deadline, the Guardians made a move that I called playoff preventing by trading Shane Bieber away, the Guardians pitching staff picked up the slack. Give me the Guardians in round number 1. Game number 2 in the National League, Padres Cubs. I really want to pick the Chicago Cubs. I do. I want to pick Chicago. I love PCA. I love Imanaga. I love this team. We talked about team chemistry a lot today. This is a fun team to watch play baseball. They love playing baseball and they're fun to watch. The problem they have is that the Padres are another one of those teams that are playing their best ball. And more importantly, the Cubs pitching staff has, I'm not going to say disappeared on us, but it got icy cold down the stretch. And Chicago is not carrying, like Cleveland, like Milwaukee, like San Diego to some degree. They are not carrying a streaky run of dubs into the playoffs, but it's not. So the 2 things that are the most important for a team that is entering the postseason with some level of optimism, A, are you streaking when you go in? And B, is your pitching good? The answer is no to both for Chicago. I'll take the Padres over the Cubs, and that might be a 2-game sweep. In game number 3, the Red Sox are at the New York Yankees. The Yankees are the easy pick for most people. I'm going Boston. I'll tell you why I'm going with the road upset for the Boston Red Sox here. It's a few things. Number 1, the Yankees are leaning on their lineup right now. They are leaning on their power right now. They are leaning on Giancarlo. They are leaning on Aaron Judge. They are leaning on their bats to go hit a bunch of big dongs and run support them. Now, they do have maybe the best pitcher in the American League, not named Skubal, going today. That, of course, being former Atlanta Brave Max Fried. But the Red Sox are going with Garrett Crochet, who is in his back pocket in just about every statistic that is measurable off the bump. I do not think game 1 is a given. Here's the reason, though, that I'm going with the Red Sox. What has been the bugaboo for the Yankees this year? What has been the problem? The problem is they're a bad defensive team. Not a defensive team that's playing poorly. I mean, they are a bad defensive team. They are a team that, against a lineup that can put the ball in play and does not rely on giant dongs to do it, the Red Sox, they're a team that is going to give up a few runs across a 3-game series on errors, on mental relapses, whatever it is that we want to blame it on. The Red Sox pitching staff is not as far behind the Yankees as everybody thinks it is. The Red Sox lineup is a much better small ball team than the Yankees are. They can put the ball in play, get around the bags quite a bit. And most importantly of all, the Yankees relying on hitting, not pitching, although it's good pitching. Outside of Max Fried, it's not great. Relying on home runs while having defensive liabilities is a recipe for disaster. Give me the Red Sox. And then finally, in the series that starts off with its first game latest tonight, Reds-Dodgers. Listen, I want to pull for the Reds. I am pulling for the Reds against the juggernaut that is the Dodgers. I love Ellie De La Cruz. He is one of my favorite baseball players on the planet right now. I love Hunter Green, who will get the start tonight. He's my strikeout king. I love Hunter Green. Just a fun pitcher to watch pitch. Like, there's just an exuberance off the bump that not a lot of guys have like Hunter Green does. Here's the problem. I don't know what they do outside of that to combat what the Dodgers can do, because the Dodgers have top line pitching and they can play any sort of offense that they need to in any given spot. You need dongs, no problem. Freddie Freeman and Shohei Ohtani are right there. You need small ball, no problem. You got guys like Mookie Betts all the way around the lineup. This is one of those spots where the analysis is going to be very lazy. The Dodgers are just a better baseball team. And when I say better, I think in almost all of these series, there is a team that is clearly a better baseball team. However, there's a lot of deficiencies with them. The Dodgers are just that far ahead of Cincinnati. I am more interested in what is an inevitable round 2 matchup between the Los Angeles Dodgers and having to go on the road to Philly to take on the Phillies in round number 2. Far as the World Series goes for me, I'm going back to that pitching. I'm going back to what I believe matters the most when it comes to pitching. Out of the American League, give me the Cleveland Guardians. Give me the Seattle Mariners over the Cleveland Guardians in round number 2. And I'm going to take them over the Blue Jays in the ALCS. The Seattle Mariners have in my opinion, best and not nearly appreciated pitching staff in Major League Baseball. And oh, by the way, Cal Big Dong might as well go win the whole thing. Raleigh is now surrounded by guys, Eugenio Suarez, Robbie Naylor, who they picked up at the trade deadline. Like, they've got dogs. They can hit the ball as well as anybody, in my opinion, and they have the best pitching staff in baseball. Pitching matters, and I don't think there's a staff. Cleveland's close, but I don't think there's a staff that will keep up with Seattle. I'm taking the Mariners out of the American League, out of the National League. Much more difficult bounce around for me, because I sat down last night trying to rank the pitching staffs of these teams. The Phillies, I would like to put at the top. But here's the thing. There's no Zach Wheeler in this spot. Walker Buehler's been good, but Aaron Nola, who was good in his last start, has not been good this year. I don't think the Phillies have the pitching staff to get there. And while I think Duran is a great pitcher, a great closer, and Matt Strom's a great setup man, they don't have any depth past that, so I can't pick them. I would like to pick the Dodgers. I mean, the Dodgers with Yamamoto, Blake Snell, Tyler Glasnow, Shohei Ohtani, Clayton Kershaw, Emmett Sheehan if they need him. The Dodgers are a pick. Here's the thing. They've had that rotation, with the exception of injuries, throughout the course of the season, and they were not able to separate from anybody else. They weren't able to get away from anybody else in the National League. The Dodgers coming in, if there was a safe bet in the preseason, the safe bet was, with this absolute all-star rotation that they have, the Dodgers should not be setting the over-under mark at 101.5 wins. It should be at like 108, 109.5. They did not get it to 100 wins this year. Even with that staff, and yes, they had injuries. Guys missed a lot of time. Shohei didn't start throwing until a week and a half, 2 weeks before the All-Star game. I get it. They've had this rotation all year, and it never really jumped off the page at you. So out of the National League, the team that I am looking at, and this might be a problem. They have an excellent bullpen. The question mark is consistency. They have dealt with injuries. Jose Quintana, Brandon Woodruff, Jacob Mrazowski, who started as a dude that was like, we might have found the next Randy Johnson, and has posted a 6.06 ERA in his last few games. I would like to go with the Brewers out of the National League, but I can't do it. I'm going to go with the Padres, and I'll tell you why. They may not have the aces up the sleeve that a lot of these other teams do as far as the front-end rotation, but they've got every setup man and every closer that everybody else has, and they are the hottest team that's not the Brewers coming in. So why pick the Padres over the Brewers in round number 2? Very simple. Because they have both things, The Brewers, I have questions. Now, if the Brewers pitching staff comes out and everybody's healthy and Mizorowski's ERA isn't 6.06 in the playoffs, then the Brewers will win the National League. And they were my pick last night with Cody Decker. But once I got in this morning and I told him I reserved the right to change it up until first pitch of game number 1 today at 1 p.m., I am doing that now. I am shifting it up and taking the Padres because the pitching staff, the front end stuff for the Brew Crew is banged up. If it wasn't, easy pick for Milwaukee. I am relying on you don't just bounce back as a pitcher and start killing it immediately. All right, so there's my predictions. I'll take the Mariners to the American League Championship Series and a winner. I will take the Padres to the NLCS and a winner. We'll do more World Series stuff later on. We've got Lulu Kesin of the Greenville News joining us next to talk Gamecock football. We got Lonzo with a world-class sports flash now.
The Miami Dolphins picked up their first win of the year last night, beating the Jets 27-21. Tua Tagovailoa completed 17 of 25 passes for 177 yards and 2 touchdowns. Tyreek Hill was forced to leave the game with the dislocated knee and major ligament damage, which will end his season. It was ugly. It was very ugly. The Denver Broncos got to 2-2 with a 28-3 win over the Bengals last night on the arm of Bo Nix, who completed 29 of 42 passes for 326 yards and a pair of touchdowns. The Bengals were held to just 53 rushing yards and 125 passing yards, with no receiver recording more than 32 receiving yards. That's not good. Clipper star Kawhi Leonard has spoken out for the first time since allegations of salary cap circumvention by his team. Leonard denied that he was paid by the now bankrupt aspiration for no services provided. He called the story conspiracy and labeled it as not accurate.
Up to the minute upstate traffic. A crash southbound 85 at 276 Malden Road has the left lane closed. This is at mile marker 36, where there's a lot of construction vehicles, so slow down, move right, and use caution. Both north and southbound 85 now stalling between Highway 14 and 385. Woodruff Road at Highway 14 is a mess. Back to Five Forks. Avoid that area.
Only on
The Fan Upstate.
The Rob Brown Show back on your radio. It is the Fan Upstate. Rob Brown, the great one, Lonzo, and you. Now, our next guest ordinarily joins us on Thursdays, but she is being flown up to New York City. I assume it is to win some very lofty prize for elite level journalism. That is why we love to have Lulu Kesin join us on the show. Kind enough to offer us a different slot in the week, and we appreciate the time as always. Lulu Kesin, how we doing before a big trip to the Big Apple?
Good morning. Thanks for being flexible. I'm tired, but I'm good.
I love it. Glad to hear it. I can't imagine you're not tired because I have to imagine, Lulu, that the vibes were high in Columbia, South Carolina this past weekend, and we will get into the X's and the O's here in just a few minutes from right now. But talk to me, whether it is from a emotional standpoint, from a chemistry standpoint, from a standpoint of just getting everybody back on the same page, and I'm talking player to player, player to coach to coach, fan to player, etc. How big was that win this weekend?
It was huge. Obviously, Shane Beamer specifically really needed that win, and South Carolina's team this year did, but I think everybody, involved in the program could take even just the slightest, sigh of relief. You could tell total shift in vibes, definitely not in the sense of, oh, we have nothing else to worry about anymore. Just, okay, we're back at least in the winning column before we have a week off.
You start the year 0-2 in the Southeastern Conference, and that makes it very unlikely, not impossible, because we saw Georgia lose, we saw LSU lose, not impossible that if you were able to run the slate, and that's obviously a huge task with the teams you have lined up ahead of you for the rest of the ride, Lulu Kesin, but it has to be looked at as 10-2 gets you into the playoffs. I've been saying all year, I think it is very possible a 9-3 team could get in. I think those are pretty heavy asks with the schedule ahead of South Carolina, but I also still think it is, again, with the greatest year ever, absolutely a possibility. Is that being discussed, talked about? Do you think that is something that is on the players' mind, or are we just recognizing the spot we're in and the challenge ahead of us is a game-by-game scenario?
Well, I think for Shane, he'll never lower expectations even when things sort of don't go the way they planned, and I think we can all be realistic of this, and think that we all thought South Carolina was going to be 4-1, maybe 5-0 heading into this bye week. Definitely did not see them losing to, Vanderbilt. And I mean, Missouri was a bit more realistic in my eyes, but we've realized since then that South Carolina, has some growing pains, and that Vanderbilt is an incredibly good team. Like, I will stand on that. I will definitely eat my words. And I mean, I never thought they were bad, but I picked South Carolina to win. But that's all to say, I do think South Carolina fans are probably more realistic now of the sense. I mean, I've seen some tweets that's like, hey, 10-2 is still on the table. I think that right now it's don't take a step back from last year and finish with as close to, 8 or 9 wins as you can, because in all honesty, that looks difficult at times with this team. But at the same time, it's Shane. It's somebody that wants to continue to bring this program to new heights. And he's not going to say, oh, we can't be a playoff team until he's probably told they can't be.
I want to stay right here for just a minute, Lulu Kesin, because as we mentioned, very difficult rest of the SEC schedule remaining between here and the game against Coastal, and then obviously Clemson coming to the crib at the end of the year. But when you are talking about carrying momentum, this is something South Carolina did last year, not the start they wanted to the season. After the LSU loss, they were able to kind of like hit a new gear. This is a team I have described as, to throw that millennial word around again, this is a vibes team. This is a team that is, when it's up and it's playing well and the boys are clicking and hitting helmets together, it feels like a different football team than it did, say, for instance, in the Vanderbilt game, in the end of the Missouri game when Ahmad Hardy was just running like a freight train through the defense. I kind of felt those vibes again during specifically the end of that Kentucky game. What needs to be done to ensure that that mentality sticks this time? And if they hit a little adversity against A&M or Oklahoma or LSU in the night game at Baton Rouge or whatever, that they don't kind of go back to that mentality of Vanderbilt? Or do you think that is something that is within the control of Shane Beamer and or the football team itself?
That's a good question. I think yes and no. With South Carolina, a lot of their issues were execution based, but at the same time, exactly to your point, they were vibe based, and they were almost like a little lack of, focus or leadership or things that were within just the lines of, okay, mentally something's off right now. Bye weeks are scary, in my opinion, especially based on the fact that South Carolina had two extreme outcomes, in my opinion, after a bye week. They have a week off and then host Ole Miss last year and then lose 27-3. And then they go on a little bit, they lose to Alabama, they beat Oklahoma, and then they have another bye week, and then they win kind of big, in my opinion, against Texas A&M. I think that South Carolina has shown that they can do some good and some bad after extra time off. It doesn't help that LSU is coming into this game having just picked up a loss. That's probably going to anger them. But I think South Carolina, to answer your question, has to recognize that a lot more went well than just executing against a bad Kentucky team. Like, offense was helping defense and vice versa. There were good vibes, and it seems like people were playing as one. And that needs to stick more than anything. It can't just be, okay, we executed the game plan really well against Kentucky. They have to continue to take step forward in recognizing what else went well.
I agree with that entirely. One more question in this line, Lulu, and then we will get to the LSU game and the rest moving forward. It sounds kind of like a joke and a joke question, but it is very much not. In that press conference, and we all remember the comments from Mark Stoops a couple of years ago about there's a difference between culture change and climate change, and putting on funny sunglasses and dancing in the locker room is a climate change. We at Kentucky are going through a culture change. Shane Beamer's 4 in a row against Kentucky, but more importantly, after the back-to-back L's, I pointed out, and I think I brought it up to you a couple of weeks ago, that it felt like things kind of went quiet in Columbia, right? Like we weren't getting the larger-than-life personality we've come to expect and love out of Shane Beamer. Most of the players' social media channels kind of went dark there for a little while. It didn't feel like the character of that team was there. In the press conference, Shane got asked, hey, no sunglasses this time? And he kind of laughed and said, no sunglasses, but we were bumping Soulja Boy in the locker room, which is the song that they were playing when those comments from Mark Stoops came out. You combine that with the on-the-field comment in the postgame where he said, yeah, one of their coaches said Beamer ball isn't a South Carolina thing, that's a Virginia Tech thing. Well, and he pointed at the scoreboard. It kind of felt like all of that was not just receipts for Kentucky, but kind of setting the tone moving forward.
Yeah, and I think that Shane recognized, like, he had to move in silence the last 2 weeks because it wasn't just, okay, they lost to a good team. Like, I think, for example, like the Alabama game last year, they did almost everything right. I mean, Lenoris had an insane game, but he had a bad, he threw one bad pass at the wrong time and had 2 costly fumbles. Like, that's when I think Shane can continue to be himself after a win and still like be, the vibes that we all expect. But I think he kind of really read the room and recognized that a lot of people were unhappy with him and kind of bought into this idea of, okay, like we can't be like that until we prove that we're worthy of that on the field. And I think that was a huge focus. I mean, I don't know that for sure, but it did feel like your assessment is correct, where they took a lot of time to kind of really reflect and figure out what was exactly kind of going wrong. And that's not to say they have it entirely figured out now, but I think he recognized it was a really productive step forward.
Lulu Kesin of the Greenville News joining us here on the Rob Brown Show, ordinarily at this time on Thursdays, but has a trip OOT out of town, so she's joining us here on a Tuesday. Let's kind of take a glance ahead, Lulu Kesin, at this LSU game. You mentioned a minute ago they take a punch to the nose against Ole Miss. Lane Kiffin and the boys get it done. And there's two things about that. Number one, I kind of thought and called the shot on Friday. I kind of thought of LSU a little bit overrated. I think Garrett Nussmeier is fine, but I didn't get him skyrocketing to the top of the Heisman hype. I thought it was a team, like Brian Kelly's teams are, that the minute that they got punched a couple of times, they would kind of fold a little bit. Yes, they're going to be mad. Yes, they're going to be buzzing. But the takeaway from that game for me was Trinidad Chambliss, the quarterback that took over at Ole Miss, being elusive, getting outside of the pocket, using his athleticism as weapon number one to set up the arm was what did LSU in. If there's a good bit for South Carolina, a good takeaway from that game, it's got to be that if you let Lenora Sellers loose, he can do what Trinidad Chambliss did for Ole Miss. What's your 36,000-foot view on this game a handful of days before we get there?
Yeah, I agree. And I definitely think the thing about like LSU too, is if we're just talking statistics, their offense isn't, and I know that this might sound crazy, but their offense isn't performing at that much higher of a clip right now than South Carolina's is. Both teams can't really run the ball. Both teams are sort of still struggling with passing a little bit. If you're just looking at basic SEC standings, rankings, stats right now, it's a team that doesn't look really, really scary on paper like some of these others might. And kind of like I'd argue maybe an Ole Miss or A&M does right now. I think LSU is a team that South Carolina can beat if it plays its own game well, but also meets the moment, which they haven't really done, in my opinion, mentally. I think Kentucky, yes and no, but I just think, to be honest, Kentucky was just a lot worse than I expected them to be. But South Carolina did kind of recover quickly after letting, the run game do whatever they wanted in the first quarter. But that's all to say, LSU, it's going to be a crazy environment. It's a night game in Death Valley, but at the same time, I think that South Carolina will be able to find some success if it plays its own game really well, and doesn't, kind of like how Shane said, like they have to play us too. Like South Carolina hasn't necessarily earned that fear yet, but if it's something they buy into, they could have some success.
I do not disagree with that assessment. I think the other thing that is on the table here, and we talked about Lenoris, and I want to kind of use this, Lulu Kesin, to segue to another spot. It did feel, and Shane Beamer pointed out again in that post-game press conference when asked specifically about the run game, that we were able to get Lenoris going to some degree. I think he had a dozen carries and only 2 or 3 were passes that he had to really take off. There were more of those design runs that I and a lot of Gamecock fans have been screaming about, while I also think to some degree trying to take care of Lenoris, especially after that head injury a couple of weeks ago, not throwing him to the wolves. This LSU team is very, very good in the defensive backfield, and with Whit Weeks very good at the linebacker spot. Do you think we will see Mike Shula lean more into Lenoris, whether it is as a designed runner weapon or moving the pocket, shifting the block around and taking advantage of the legs even on pass plays? Or do you think we're going to kind of stay a little bit more balanced against LSU? Because it feels like, to me, this would be a great time to really break out every tool that Lenoris has, because this game suddenly, after the Ole Miss game, kind of feels winnable, to be honest.
Yeah, I agree. I think it does really feel winnable. And I think you kind of have to pull out all the stops. I think that Shula has to be not only creative, but productive almost every single time Lenoris is on the field. Similar to what Shane said about Vanderbilt, like it's the type of game where you can't win if you don't sustain drives, and your defense can be amazing and your defense can disrupt Garrett Nussmeier. But if Lenoris isn't able to match, any type of offensive momentum that LSU has, it's going to be a long night. And I wish I could sit here and say that I expect Shula to I guess, I don't want to say allow, but just kind of buy into Lenoris on the ground as much as maybe he did against Kentucky, or we saw Lenoris feel comfortable and confident doing against Kentucky. But there has to be, taste of Missouri too, which there's a lot on offense that impressed me against Missouri. I don't know if that's a hot take, but I think that there's a lot South Carolina has put on tape throughout very random moments. It's sort of putting that into one game.
I do not disagree with that either. So then let's ask one more, Lulu Kesin, and we'll let you get up out of here. We know what the slow start against Virginia Tech did, in my opinion, that led to a slow start against SC State. I think the slow start against SC State led to what happened against Vanderbilt. You compound that with the injury to Lenora Sellers. The team went flat. They come back out. Next game on the road at Mizzou. I think at that point they were kind of in their own head. I think it was a reset, and that's why everybody went dark. This win over Kentucky leading into the LSU game. If South Carolina is able to get a win over LSU, a team that did fall down a bunch of spots after the loss, still a very good football team. If South Carolina can go on the road and get a win over LSU, what does that set up the rest of the season to look like for you, knowing that Texas A&M is a top 16. Oklahoma is a top 5 team. Alabama's waiting for you. We'll see what happens with them and Vandy this weekend. But with that gauntlet ahead of you, what does it mean if Shane Beamer can figure it out, if Lenora Sellers balls out, and if this team is able to hand LSU their second consecutive?
Well, I think that it wouldn't be LSU lost to a really, oh, wow, LSU lost to a bad South Carolina team. It's, okay, South Carolina had a bad start. And I think the only way that you prove that, that you're a young team with growing pains, but you have talent, is to win in the back half of the season, regardless of how hard your schedule is. And I know that might sound unfair, but, South Carolina still, despite all it lost, returned enough and had enough portal talent, recruiting talent to, be productive this year. And it has not reached its potential. So I think if South Carolina hands LSU its second straight loss in their own stadium, the narrative is set up for Shane to kind of punch his ticket home by saying, all right, we didn't get off to the best start, but this team is still good. We're still a good program. We're still taking steps forward.
All right, Lulu Kesin, prediction for the ball game.
Ooh, I haven't even thought that far yet. I think it's close. I think it's one touchdown, one way or the other. I might print LSU win, but believe South Carolina will win.
I like that. As somebody who loves to hedge a bet, I love that. Lulu Kesin covers the South Carolina Gamecock Athletic Department for the Greenville News. Ordinarily joins us on Thursday. Got some plans, kind enough to shift ahead and talk some Gamecocks with us today. Young lady, you are the best. Thank you very much as always. Enjoy your trip to New York. Get some pizza. It's the best.
Thank you. I can't wait. Yes. Thank you so much again for being flexible, and I'll talk to you guys next week.
Of course. Absolutely. Lulu Kesin, again, from the Greenville News. Follow her if you're a Gamecock fan on X at Lulu Kesin, LULUKESIN. Follow us into the next segment because, ladies and gentlemen, as we always do in the 8 o'clock hour, it is time to hand out America's most prestigious awards. It is time to hand out the
is not real
trophies for this week in football. That's next on the Rob Brown Show in the Fan Upstate. All right, guys, let me go get on my streaming the show on apps is down. All right, let me go work on that. You'll stay right there.
say play 97 The Fan Upstate on your HD radio at WFBC HD3.
There's just one more thing.
And on your computer at
FanUpstate.com.
Always streaming wherever you are on the Odyssey app. Make The Fan Upstate a favorite.
All right, let's get to it. Let's hand out America's favorite individual football awards. Backseat Heisman Trophy. Take a hike, NFL MVP. It is the
It's not real.
awards that the real football heads care about. So let's dive right in. We've got a fistful of them to give out. In college football, we'll do our NFL in the next segment. We start with a Friday night upset of the number 8 Florida State Seminoles, carried out by the Virginia Cavaliers, a double overtime 46-38 win in this one. I'd like to hand it to the quarterback, Chandler Morris, but it got picked off 3 times in that game. Instead, I am going to give it, and I don't do group awards very often, but I'm going to give it to the Virginia Cavalier receivers. And I mean all of them. Why? 229 receiving yards against the defense that was feeling itself dating back to that win over Alabama. Nobody had more than 45 yards, but they had 9 different receivers that had double digits in the receptions category. If you watch this game, Virginia was just dinking and dunking FSU to death. They gassed Florida State's defense. So when it came overtime, Florida State's defense was just out of it at that point. It's cliche. I hate doing group awards. Can't help it in this one. Entire Virginia receiving core.
It's not real.
Pick up their first TMF INR. 27-24, the Arizona State Sun Devils upset the TCU Horny Toads. Relique Brown, 24 carries, 134 yards.
Cousin?
No, we are not related. That I'm aware of. Maybe we are. I don't know. I don't think so. I don't see a family resemblance. 21 totes, $134. Did not score, but kept the field open. I was very close to handing it to Sam Levitt, 27 of 39, 291 and 2 touchdowns. The reason that I picked Arizona State to win the Big 12 this year. But another one of those games, the TMF INRs are not awarded on stats alone. They are awarded on impact on the game. And Relique Brown and his run game, 6.4 yards per carry, kept the TCU Horny Toads on the front foot on defense, opened up the field for Sam Levitt. Relique Brown
It's not real.
is not real. 24-6. The Ohio State Buckeyes knock off the Washington Huskies. Another one of those games, great one, that nobody on the Buckeyes team really stood out as being exceptional, especially considering, as you pointed out on Monday, this Buckeye team took a little while to get rolling. Scoreless at the end of the first quarter. The Buckeyes led 7-3 at the end of the first half. Nobody really jumping off the stat sheet, but I got to give it to somebody as the number 1 team in the country gets another win. Julian Sayin, efficient with the football, 22 of 28, 208, 2 touchdowns. Never really looked over the top for any big shots to Jeremiah Smith, probably because he did not need to. 22 of 28, 208, and 2 touchdowns through the air. Julian Sayin.
It's not real.
I know freshmen don't. What, Heisman?
No, because of the next guy that picked up a TMF INR award. That is the quarterback of the Oregon Ducks. They went to Nittany Lionville, to Happy Valley. It was a whiteout. It's supposed to be the most intimidating thing in the world, which, by the way, we're going to talk about that here in just a few moments because there's actually a hilarious history to the whiteout. Whatever. Point is, Dante Moore, 29 of 39, 248, and 3 touchdowns. The Ducks rushed for $176. Moore had 35 of those rushing yards. He is your, right now, in my ever so humble yet frequently correct and ball-knowing opinion, Dante Moore is your front runner for the Heisman. A freshman picking up the most iconic trophy in college football. I don't know, but this performance helped Dante Moore.
Is not real.
Is not real. 24-19, the Ole Miss Rebels knock off and upset the number 4 ranked LSU Tigers. There's nobody else I could give this to. Cohen Lacey had 87. That's a big day. Caden Lee, 70 yards and a touchdown through the air. How about Trinidad Chambliss? Gets handed the starting reins 1 week before. Comes out, looks great. Then there was a controversy all week. Will he start? Will he not start? Will they go back to the other guy? Will Chambliss keep his job? It was a big smoke show. I think they knew all week he was going to get the run. But to head into this game against an LSU defense that was expected to be one of the best in the country and to go 23 of 39 for 314, one tutty and a pick, and also run for 71 yards. Trinidad Shameless quarterback, Ole Miss.
Is not real.
Is not real. 24-21, the Alabama Crimson Tide knock off the Georgia Bulldogs in they crib, head into Athens and get it done. The run game was okay for Alabama. They get Jam Miller back, 16 carries, 46 yards, averaged just under 3 per carry. The receiving core, very good, led by Isaiah Horton, 5 catches, 65 yards, and a touchdown. But can we talk about Ty Simpson? All the SEC quarterback discussion we had about Lenora Sellers and Garrett Nussmeier, all the conversations that we had about how big quarterbacks are going to be. Right now, there is not a quarterback in the SEC, and I would argue, based on preseason expectations, not a quarterback who is overperforming what he was expected to do than Ty Simpson. 24 of 38, 276, 2 touchdowns. More importantly, wasn't ever really looking for the big shots. Ty Simpson was saying, what Georgia gives, I take, and he took with extreme efficiency. Quarterback of the Alabama Crimson Tide, Ty Simpson.
Is not real.
Is not real. The Texas A&M Aggies, 16-10 winners over the Auburn Tigers. That bumped them all the way up into the top 6 in college football. I bounced around about who should get this, and then I realized I shouldn't bounce around. It's Le'Veon Moss. 21 carries, 139 yards and a touchdown, averaged over 6.6 yards per carry. Even if you take away his breakout 38-yard touchdown run, he still had 101 yards into the face of an Auburn Tiger defense. Le'Veon Moss.
That is not real.
For the record, Casey Concepcion was close. 7 grabs, 113 through the air. But what Le'Veon Moss did was set the tone for the Aggies. 20-15, the Hoosiers, they win. Google them. Get a 2015 win over the Iowa Hawkeyes. It is not, although I love him, and I think he should be at the top of your Heisman odds as well, not Fernando Mendoza. It is Elijah Surratt for the Indiana Hoosier receiving corps. 6 grabs, 132 yards, and a touchdown, including a 49-yarder that broke the game open. Indiana receiver Elijah Surratt.
Is not real.
Is not real.
Break the game, Oprah. I mean, I can't.
I got like 12 more and we got like 3 minutes. I am balling out here. 39-14. The Iowa State Cyclones still undefeated at 5-0, moving up the rankings one after the next. No, it is not Rocco Beck, who we talked about last week as the reason that they would win this game, although he did help to get Chase Sewell's 4 grabs, 146 yards on the board. Did not score in this game, but when Iowa State found their back against the wall, Sewell was able to pop out and get one done. Chase Sewell
is not real.
Is not real. Let's go to the Tennessee 41-34 win over the Mississippi State Bulldogs. This one was tough. This one was tough because Joey Aguilar, who was 24 of 40 for 335 and a touchdown, also got picked off twice, and both of them needless interceptions, which sends me then to the receiver core. Mike Matthews, 6 catches, 118 yards. Chris Brazzell, the second, 6 catches, 105 yards. They found spots open. They were catching the football in stride. And when Joey Aguilar, who went from darling to cast off, needed a bump, needed a boost, needed some help, he got it from Matthews and Brazzell.
That is not real.
Let's go to the Georgia Tech game against Wake Forest. Shouldn't have been this close for the Rambling Wreck, but it was. They remain undefeated at 5-0 with a 30-29 walk-off victory. Who else? Haynes King. He's going to win one every time anybody wins one for the Wreck. Jamal Haynes was banged up before this game. He did go 10 carries, 21 yards, was not efficient, so it all fell onto the shoulders of Haynes King. 28 of 42, 243, and a touch through the air. 21 totes. 106 yards, averaged 5 yards a carry, and punched it in twice. This young man is a monster.
That is not real.
Haynes King. Vanderbilt, 55-35 over the Utah State Aggies. You know who the man is. Diego Pavia, 26 of 34, 321 passing yards, and 5 aerial touchdowns for Diego Pavia. There's some other guys that were in the running, but then it was running that won it for Pavia. 9 carries, 79 yards, and a touchdown as well. Once again, Diego Pavia.
That is not real.
Is not real. The Missouri Tigers over the Massachusetts Minutemen. I'm not going to spend a ton of time on this one because that's a bad matchup, 42-6. I just wanted to talk one more time about Ahmad Hardy. 24 carries, 130 yards, 3 touchdowns. That kid's good. Ahmad Hardy.
That is not real.
Let's go to the Illinois. 34-32 win over the Trojans. This was a top 20 matchup in the Big Ten and massively important for both of these teams. Illinois not to get run by 40 like they did against Indiana. USC to prove that we are here and we belong. But the Illini get out of there with the win, and it was because of Luke Altmaier. 20 of 26, 328 yards and a pair of touchdowns through the air for Luke Altmaier. Also had 28 yards and a tutty on the ground as well. Illinois wins because Luke Altmaier
Is not real.
is not real. Notre Dame 56-13 winners. They got a man fired. Sam Pittman fired because the Irish had their way. Why not give it to the young man named CJ Carr taking over? A lot of question marks. Can he step in and be the Golden Domer starting quarterback? 22 of 30, 354 yards and 4 touchdowns. The Irish, once again, couldn't really get Jeremiah Love going. CJ Carr said, don't want him, don't need him. 354, 4 tutties, CJ Carr.
That is not real.
Duke, 38-3. They punched Syracuse. Syracuse? Who am I, Mike Tyson? They punched Syracuse in the face.
Syracuse didn't know what to hit him.
Yeah, that one was a little tough. Why not Darian Mensah? 22 of 28, 268, 2 touchdowns. Didn't need to be stellar, didn't have to be stellar. And I'm going to duo this one because Nate Shepard carried it 15 for $168 and 2 touchdowns. Mensah and Shepard.
That is not real.
Not real. Louisville 34-27 over the Pitt Panthers. Miller Moss, I've been saying his name all season. Pay attention to him. 51 passes, completed 33 for 339 and 3 touchdowns. Miller Moss.
That is not real.
And we wrap it up with Virginia Tech's 23-21 win over the NC State Wolfpack. Terrion Stewart, 15 carries, 174 on the ground. Didn't score, didn't need to. He kept the ball in the hands of the Hokies. The Hokies kept the dub in Blacksburg, Virginia. Terrion Stewart.
That is not real.
When we come back, we hand out our TMFINRs for the National Football League. That's next on the Rob Brown Show in the Fan Upstate.
You're listening to the Rob Brown Show. Let the game come to you, no matter where you go. In Anderson, Clemson,
Take a deep breath.
Spartanburg. Always streaming wherever you are on
Bobby
the Odyssey.
Marcio,
Make
you
the
handsome
Fan
son of a
Upstate
gun.
favorite.
Miss you too, buddy.
Chuck Sanders here.
Stay right there,
Sports
fellas. Got to get my
Presented by
NFL stuff lined up.
Progressive.
We'll be right back. I have to go with a young man who is yet another on the crop of Panthers quarterbacks who go somewhere else and do good things. Sam Darnold took care of the football. 18 of 26, 242, and a touchdown, a QBR of 75, and a rating of 111 in this game, and did so behind an offensive line for Seattle that was having its worst game of the season so far. Sacked 3 times for 13 yards, but got it done nonetheless. On top of that, I just like good things for Sam Darnold.
That is not real.
Way to go, Sam.
Way to go, Sam. 24-21, the Pittsburgh Steelers get a win over the Minnesota Vikings. Bounced around on this one too, but I'm going to hand this out for 2 reasons. Number 1, the guy earned it. Number 2, because Lonzo knocked this one out of the park. He said, look out, DK Metcalf is a game changer. In fact, picked the Steelers to win this division because DK Metcalf is a game changer. DK Metcalf changed this game. 5 snags, 126 yards, including an 80-yard touchdown. Did not drop a football. 5 targets, 5 grabs, a $126 and a tutty. DK Metcalf.
That is not real.
And if you ever see that dude without a shirt on, I think he legitimately may not be real. Like, I think he may actually be a Decepticon. That dude is built in a way that people should not be built outside of a video game.
He should also cross over into wrestling when he's done.
Dude,
yeah,
he's insane. 27-34, the Atlanta Falcons able to knock off the Washington Commanders. Now 2 games without Jaden Daniels, 2 losses.
Wait. You're going to give something to the Falcons?
Hey, man, the TMFINRs do not discriminate, ladies and gentlemen. I am going to give it to the Falcons, and I am going to give it for the second time this season to Bijan Robinson. Michael Penix Jr. was fine. 20 of 26, 313, 2 touchdowns and interception. Those numbers look great, but it must be taken into consideration the fact that both Bijan Robinson and Drake London reeled off some massive numbers. Bijan Robinson had 5 targets, 4 catches, 106 receiving yards. You stack onto that 75 rushing yards and a rushing tutty as well. Michael Penix Jr. looked good in this game. Bijan Robinson looked like the guy they drafted him to be. That's why Bijan Robinson
That is not real.
catches his second TMFINR of the year. 31-19, the Buffalo Bills knock off the New Orleans Saints. It is not Josh Allen that gets this week's for the Buffalo Bills.
4? What are you doing?
He earned 4 back in week 1. He hasn't done anything to give one back yet. I'm sure that game's coming. You know that game's coming. It just wasn't this one, but it was a big game for James Cook. 22 totes, 117 yards, and a touchdown on the ground. Also had 3 for 18 through the air as well in a game where Buffalo's offense just could not get comfortable in the pass game. James Cook said, I got you, dog.
That is not real.
And picks up a TMFINR. The Detroit Lions go up against a Cleveland team that was feeling itself a little bit after knocking off the Packers the last week. It didn't matter. 34-10 is your final in this one. I bounced around on this one a little bit. Again, there weren't great quarterback numbers. Jared Goff, 16 of 27, 168, 2 touchdowns, and a pick. Not great receiving numbers. Amon-Ra St. Brown probably in the conversation. 7 snags on 7 targets. Did have 70 yards and a pair of touchdowns. I'm going to give it to Jahmyr Gibbs. This is a cat who watched David Montgomery do his best to take his job the last 2 weeks by dramatically overperforming. I believe Montgomery picked up 2 TMFINRs in the last 2 weeks. He does not get his third because Jahmyr Gibbs showed up in this game. 15 totes, 91 yards, averaged over 6.1 yards per carry, and scored on the ground as well. Yes, Amon-Ra St. Brown with 2 touchdowns and 70 yards is in the discussion. But Jahmyr Gibbs kept the field open by running like a freight train. Jahmyr Gibbs
That is not real.
catches a TMFINR award. 42-13, the Patriots demolish the Carolina Panthers. Drake May, 14 of 17, 203. Stephon Diggs, 6 grabs for 101. I got to tell you, I think I'm going to give it to Drake May. They only asked for 17 passes compared to 29 rushing attempts. And he did not make a bad throw in this game. A QBR of 95, one of the highest in the weekend. No, the yardage isn't stacked up. But why is that? What's Carolina's weakness? Middle of the field. the linebacker spot, the step-up defensive backs. What did Drake May do with the ball? Just keep finding the spot, pounding the rock where the defense is at its weakest. Drake May
Is not real.
gets his first TMFINR award of the year. 21-18, the Giants down the Chargers. That's a real thing that really happened in this game. Here's the thing. The numbers don't jump off the page. They didn't need to. New York just needed a win, and they got one over a surprising win to get opponent, the LA Chargers. The numbers aren't there to be a standout TMFINR, but Jackson Dart got the start. He became Jackson's start. There were question marks. He's a rook. He hasn't done anything in the regular season. We'll be able to keep up. He wasn't exceptional, but he wasn't bad. 13 of 20, 111, and a touchdown through the air. Cam Scatterbo, 20 carries, 79 yards. Cam Scatterbo is what CTE would look like if it had arms and legs. Like, that man's a menace to everyone standing between him and anywhere he wants to be.
See, you say Dart.
He's Mike Allstott, but tiny.
Oh, for sure. You say Dart wasn't exceptional, but he was what the crowd wanted, and the crowd got proven right, at least for one game.
He was an absolute spark plug. He did have 10 carries for 54 yards in his first rushing touchdown.
He didn't throw like 25 interceptions like Russell Wilson did.
Nothing bad. And when the game got late and the Chargers tried to mount a comeback, Jackson Dart did exactly what he needed to do. Possess the ball, stretch out the offensive possessions, win the football game. And he did it as a rookie who half the Giants fans were calling for and half said, why are we giving the ball to a rook when we need a win? Jackson Dart.
Is not real.
The Eagles, 31-25 winners on the road at Tampa Bay. Jalen Hurts only 130 through the air. He had 62 on the ground, though. Outrushed Saquon Barkley. By the way, I'm not saying that Saquon is done. I am saying people figured out, take away Saquon Barkley and make Jalen Hurts beat you. And Jalen Hurts is figuring out how to beat you. Saquon Barkley did have the fake tush push for the end around, which we have to talk about, and we will coming up here in a minute. But yada, yada, yada. Jalen Hurts, he's not putting up numbers that blow you off the page. He's not putting up numbers that are getting him ESPN top 10 plays. He doesn't need to. You want to stop Saquon? Fine. I'll be efficient with the football, 15 of 24. I will run it when you give me space. 9 carries, 62 yards, average 7 yards a carry. Saquon Barkley did not show up. Jalen Hurts
Is not real.
did. The Texans shut out the Titans 26-0 in this one. And hey, listen, for a dude who's taken a lot of crap, because, and for the record, in the last 8 games, the final 4 last year, the first 4 this year, Caleb Williams is a better quarterback than CJ Stroud, and it's not particularly close. Way more interceptions, or way more touchdowns, way fewer picks, but sometimes you just got to see one go in. And that's what CJ Stroud did this weekend. 22 of 28, 233, 2 touchdowns. And that was with the Houston Texans running the ball 35 times in this game. He carried them in this one, CJ Stroud.
Is not real.
Gets his first on the season. 27-20, the LA Rams knock off the Indianapolis Colts. Who else but Matt Stafford? Kyron Williams was good, needed him to be 77 yards on 13 carries, but Matt Stafford, 29 of 41, 375 yards and 3 touchdowns. I am going to tandem this one because Kane showed up in the chat and said, shout out to my boy Puka Nacua. I will give the tandem because of the 375 passing yards and 3 touchdowns of Matt Stafford, Puka Nacua had 13 snags, 170 yards, and a touchdown. Matt Stafford and Puka Nacua
is not real.
are not real. The Jags did it again. I tried to tell you, it's a good team this year. Trevor Lawrence, 21 of 31, 174 and a touchdown. Efficiency again, the name of the game for a lot of quarterbacks this year. It was the elder ETN, Travis Etienne, who catches the TMFINR for this one. 19 totes, 124 yards, average 6.5 yards per carry, and punched one in as well. Listen, you want Trevor Lawrence to continue to grow, develop, play efficient football like he has done to earn Jags a 3-1 record? You got to have a run game. You got to let him work well with Travis Etienne, and they did. Until Brian Thomas Jr. gets it going again, please and thank you. Until Travis Hunter, who did have 42 yards, by the way, in this one as a receiver, develops into his own as a receiver in the offense, you've got to be able to run the ball. And Travis Etienne, 19 for 124 and a tutty. did just that. 37-20, the Kansas City Chiefs demolish the Baltimore Ravens in this one. Listen, Patrick Mahomes won one last week. I didn't want to hand out back-to-backs to anybody, whether they are Mahomes or anybody else, but I don't know who else to give it to. 38 rushing yards for Xavier Worthy. He's not a running back, by the way. 35 for Isaiah Pacheco, 34 for Kareem Hunt. Hunt averaged 2.6 yards per carry. Pacheco averaged 5 because he only had 7. It's a good showing. Xavier Worthy had 83 receiving yards as well. But Patrick Mahomes kept the field open. He was elusive, took 1 sack against a Baltimore defense that was coming for him. He recognized where the injuries were. He took advantage. This is one that, yes, 270 is a good number. 4 passing touchdowns is a great number. Mahomes was just taking what Baltimore's defense gave him. And they gave a lot, Patrick Mahomes.
That is not real.
Still not real.
Surprised you didn't give it to Xavier Worthy, though.
I thought about it, but I think Xavier Worthy was set up by Mahomes. I will give receivers, as I've done like 4 times so far, I will give receivers a TMFINR for making the quarterback look good. I think Patrick Mahomes made the offense look good in this one.
Everything opened up because Worthy was on the field. So
25-24. The Chicago Bears are now at 2-2 with a win over the now 1-3 Raiders in this one. Again, not a number that's going to blow you away.
Think the Raiders are going to be good this year?
Cody Decker did.
Okay,
Cody Decker did.
All right, because I mean,
my response.
You don't need to get angry or defensive. I couldn't remember.
My response to
Cody
Cody
Decker. Dots
Decker.
on your shirt are like messing with me. Don't do that.
My response to Cody Decker when he said, look out, I think the Raiders are a dark horse to win this division was, no, they're not Cody Decker because Geno Smith is Geno Smith. 14 of 21, 117, 2 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. 2 of them were atrocious passes from Geno Smith. Now, the good news is Ashton Janty finally got going. 21 carries, 138 yards, and a touchdown. In fact, I'm going to hand out our first LTMFINR. We don't give away many LTMFINRs. Joint, 1 from each team. Caleb Williams, 22 of 37, 212, a tutty, and a pick.
Wait, L, that means for losing?
Loss. That means you take the L.
All right.
Listen, I think
Don't
sometimes
make people try to figure out what the L stands for.
I think as valuable is not the same as most valuable player who won. Let's give 2. Caleb Williams, smart with the football. Made the right decisions most of the game. And Ashton Janty finally breaking out 21 totes, a $138 and a touchdown. Let's go Williams and Janty.
That is not real.
Packers get the overtime tie with the Dallas Cowboys. 40-40 is your final in that one. Bleep you, Jerry Jones. It's Dak Prescott, 31 of 40, 319, and 3 touchdowns, including 2 very high-pressure touchdowns, 1 to end the first half, 1 to get them in the second half into a position to go to overtime. And I'm going to say it's a tandem here, too. And I'm going to say a second LTMFINR because everything Dak did, Jordan Love was right there with him. 31 of 40, 319, 3 touchdowns for Dak. 31 of 43, 337, and 3 touchdowns for Jordan Love. The 2 quarterbacks carried their teams to this tie. Honorary mention to George Pickens, but let's go Love and Prescott.
That is not real.
QB's showing out. 27-21, the Dolphins get their first win over the Jets last night. No, the numbers aren't there. Tua Tagovailoa was very smart with the football last night. Made the right reads, found the right guy for a guy who had been taking a lot of crap. Tua showed out, 17 of 25, a $177 and 2 touchdowns. Tua Tagovailoa.
That is not real.
And we wrapped it up last night with a 28-3 Broncos win over the Bengals. Welcome back to the big screen, Bo Nix. 29 of 42, 326. I will tandem that with J.K. Dobbins, 16 totes, 101 yards, and a 6.3 yard per carry average. Nix and Dobbins
is not real.
are in this week's final TMFINR. Let's take a break. When we come back in the last segment of the show, we go back to the conversation we had to open the segment of the show, and that is the concept of a team philosophy and how it applies to our local squads. We'll talk about that next on the Rob Brown Show and the Fan Upstate. Oh, yeah, also Sports Flash right now.
It's okay. Now it's time to recap everything that Rob just said, but with my voice. The Miami Dolphins picked up their first win of the year last night, beating the Jets 27-21. Tua Tagovailoa completed 17 of 25 passes for 177 yards and 2 touchdowns. Tyreek Hill was forced to leave the game with a dislocated knee and major ligament damage, which will end the season. You don't look at it. You don't want to. The Denver Broncos got a to 2-2 with a 28-3 win over the Bengals last night on the arm of Bo Nix, who completed 29 of 42 passes for 326 yards and a pair of touchdowns. The Bengals were held to just 53 rushing yards and 125 passing yards, with no receivers recording more than 32 receiving yards. Major League Baseball park attendance went up for the third consecutive year, the first time dating back to 2007. MLB said it drew 71.41 million fans this year.
Up to the minute upstate traffic. Stay off I-85 between Greenville and Spartanburg and take an alternate route. Multiple wrecks. Southbound 385 at 85. Northbound 85 at mile marker 52 before Pelham. Southbound 85 at Malden Road. There's an 8-mile stretch that's below 20 miles an hour in both directions, and Woodruff Road at Highway 14 is pretty much locked down. From the News Talk 98.9 WORD Traffic Center.
Official sports voice of you, the Upstate fan.
Upstate.
And Odyssey Sports Station.
And according to traffic, there's messes everywhere.
Check this out.
You're on official Rob Brown lockdown.
Represents being real. Yeah.
Unfiltered sports talk. Manufactured locally for the Carolinas.
Lockdown.
This is the Rob Brown Show. Get robbed! Only on
The Fan Upstate.
The Rob Brown Show, back on your radio. It is the Fan Upstate. Welcome in, Rob Brown, the Great Malonzo, and you. Rolling through the final hour of the broadcast. The phone line open for you, 844-326-3663, 844-FANFONE. Call it, text it, shoot me a tweet at The Rob Brown Show. Email me, rob.brown@thefanupstate.com.
Wow, what was that number again? You said it so fast. It's like you're doing that Micro Machines speed racer.
It's the thing they do at the end of all the commercials where they're like,
oh, yeah. The
side
disclaimer.
effects may include
Yeah.
bleeding from orifices you do not want to bleed from,
Ooh, yeah.
et cetera,
you
et cetera.
Ugh.
You know the one.
No, not the orifices.
844-326-3663 is the phone number. I brought a couple of conversations up back in the first hour of the show, and I would like to get back to them now. We were having a conversation about the concept of the team mentality. One of the things, I would dare say, the best thing about the United States of America is that we are a country that was founded on multiple principles, one of which was individuality. The right to be who you want to be, to do what you want to do, the way you want to do it, the way to work how you wish. The work to play, or the right to play how you wish, the right to worship how you wish or not to at all, the right to love who you wish to love. And while there's a large contingent of Americans who would like to stop other people from doing what they want to do, that's not the foundational principle this country was built on. And that is a wonderful, wonderful thing. However, like every other good thing, sometimes good things go too far. And it is not that I think there should be a limit. As long as you are not impacting anyone else negatively, you should be able to do whatever you want to do, regardless of what other people think or about it. However, I think we have hit a tipping point in this country where we have taught the next generation, or are in the process of doing so, that your individuality is always the best thing. It's just always the best thing. And I think to some degree, it has led to a bleed over effect in the world of sports. Here's what I mean by that. Divas in sports have always been a thing, right? This is why we have Terrell Owens doing sit-ups in his driveway and talking about how that's my quarterback, man. It's always been a thing. But it's always been a thing in a way that we kind of point out when someone is acting that way and ordinarily laugh at it, judge it, whatever. I think we have created a world that people believe my getting attention is more important than the impact of my getting attention on other people. This is why there is, disappointingly, an entire genre of YouTubers who their entire gimmick is they go out in public and they annoy/harass people so that they can post it on the internet for people to click, I like this. And we should stop doing that. I think the illustration, or what jumped out that made me have this thought a couple of days ago, starts with the Ryder Cup. If you were paying attention to the Ryder Cup in the lead up to the event, you saw something that was obvious from the rip. Team Europe was Team Europe. Team USA was a group of Americans all wearing the same polo shirt. Team Europe showed up, and they had a chemistry and camaraderie with each other that I am frankly envious of. Those boys were the boys. They were in that thing together. Now, I do think there is another variable at play here. I think the variable at play is that we as a country do not care about international events unless it's our sport. And while golf is obviously most popular and profitable in the United States, golf isn't necessarily viewed as our sport the way that basketball is, baseball is, to some degree hockey is, etc. And while the best golf is played in the United States, it's also very international. Look at any given golf tournament. A lot of Americans, but you have guys from all over the world that are playing on the tour and in Live Tour now. So I don't think it's really one of ours. We care about international sports when it is one of two things. Either one, it is our sport that the rest of the world is playing, baseball, basketball. Or number two, when we have some level of elite in it and we are dominating. I look at, say, women's rugby from last year's Olympic Summer Games when Alana Mayer was out there just decking folks. And Team USA for a hot minute there looked like they were going to upset the world. All of a sudden, this was a rugby country for a minute. And as soon as those Olympics were over, gone. Haven't heard anything. I mean, outside of like Alana Mayer was on Dancing with the Stars and has a huge social media following, rugby hasn't really gotten any attention since then. Just like coming up in February when the Winter Olympics get here, whatever sports we kick ass at, that's all we'll talk about for about 2.5 weeks. And then once those Winter Olympic Games are over, with the exception of maybe hockey, we won't think about those sports again until 4 years later when the Olympics roll around, winter edition again. So when you compound that we as a country don't really care about international sports, which I find disappointing, honestly. And not only do I find it disappointing, but the more it progresses and the more the rest of the world does care about international sports as passionately as they care about their domestic sports, right? Like English fans of football, they love Chelsea, Man U, Liverpool, Brighton, whoever. They love their Premier League teams and their lower level teams. But when England pulls on the Three Lions kit and they go play international footy, their fans have the same level of passion and excitement for that team as they do their domestic team, as they do their Chelseas and their Man U's and their Man Cities, etc. We're not like that. We're not. The only team in recent memory that I can say had even close to that amount of passion was Team USA basketball. But again, that's because that's our sport. Quick, name me another gold medalist from the Summer Olympics 2 years ago. Any American. Tough to do, right? That's kind of the point. Then
anybody on the basketball team?
Yeah, like I said, anybody outside of basketball, name me a gold medalist. Name me a swimmer. Katie Ledecky. Give me another one. I don't even know, and I'm the one sitting here judging, right? So, all of that being said.
Gable Steveson.
Sure. I don't remember. Do you? I don't. The point here is you add that on top of what I believe was genuinely the issue. Golf is an individual sport. Yes, you show up and play in tournaments that have upwards of 60 people playing in it. But at the end of the day, and this is one of the reasons I love golf, when I get onto the tee to hit my drive, the shots that come before me and the shots that come after me are irrelevant to what I'm about to do. There is only one shot that matters to me, and that is my golf shot. Nothing else matters. Now, maybe that changes on 18 on Sunday when you know on 18 you've got to get a birdie to force a playoff or a birdie wins it for you. Then maybe you're probably thinking about it then. But even still, you're not saying, I've got to play this hole better than that other guy. You're saying, in order for me to win, I have got to go get a birdie on this hole. The only thing that matters is me. And that's a wonderful thing about golf. But the Ryder Cup isn't that. The Ryder Cup is a team event. There are 5 rounds of golf. The last one on Sunday is individual. It's you versus one other guy. And it's everybody on the 2 teams playing individually. But Friday, you play 36 holes with a teammate. Saturday, you play 36 holes with a teammate. And that means, especially if you have a bad run and your team gets shifted, as Team USA had to some degree between Friday and Saturday, you have to have chemistry with that player. You have to have trust with that player. Team Europe had all of it. Team USA did not. Did not. And it was very evident because they played on Friday and Saturday in both the foursomes and the four ball. They played disjointed golf. Now, I'm not sitting here doing this segment to do a Ryder Cup breakdown. I am doing this segment to point out that I think to some degree, we, by way of making individuality, me standing out as me, ahead of everything else, our defining quality, defining feature, I think we have created a world where our team sports are going to suffer for it. And I would say, while it's going to be more on display at like the Summer Olympics than it would the winter, because there's just not as many team sports, I think you combine those two things and you will see that, because the domination of the Olympic Games that Team USA across all sports used to enjoy, it's not there anymore. It's just not. And when I look at, say, football teams, I use this example back in the first hour as well. I played the clips from Dave Canales in his post-game press conference after the Panthers got embarrassed on Sunday by the Patriots. And between the three clips that I played, which were the three longest answers that Canales gave during that post-game press conference, there was one theme that ran consistent across them. And that theme was me. I need to do a better job. I need to find out what makes these guys tick. I need to find out what their chemistry is. I need to get them on the same page. I need to put them in a place where they can go out there and run the game plan and succeed. And I get it. And I appreciate it. Number one, because that's all factually true. Let's start there. Much like the clip I played with James Franklin, where a reporter said, what do you make of this narrative about you and ranked games? And James Franklin said, it's not a narrative, it's a fact. I get it handed to me in ranked games. That's a paraphrase. He didn't say that. I'm adding words there, but that's pretty much what he said. And it's like, on one hand, I respect and appreciate the accountability, because there are a lot of coaches who would not take the accountability there, and he did. But on the other hand, I'm not going to give you brownie points for saying something that is objectively true. I'm not going to give Dave Canales brownie points for saying, well, it's on me to figure out the chemistry and get that chemistry developed and run the right. Yes, it is. That's your job as the head coach. But that's not what stood out. What stood out to me afterwards was the comments from both Derek Brown and J.C. Horn. Derek Brown, after the Dave Canales postgame press conference, was in the locker room. And he said, we want to be a player-led team. And if we want to be a player-led team, we need players to lead. Can't be player-led if there's no players letting. We have got to find people to lead. And that includes me, that includes JC, et cetera, et cetera. Then JC Horn got asked the same question in front of his locker. And he said, listen, that's our head coach, man. And that's what he's going to say. That's what any head coach is going to say. This is all on me. Take it off the players. He said, but it's not. It's on us. We can go out there and we can practice and we can talk a big game about how we're going to do this and that and the other thing. But if we don't go out there and play like it is the only thing that matters, if we don't have leaders on both sides of the football step up and take control of the situation, it's just going to keep happening. And this is why I pointed out that, as I have been the longest running and staunchest defender of Bryce Young, I am disappointed in BY right now. And it's not just the performance of BY, which is lacking. He does not look like he has the same command over the offense that he had at the end of last year. And I've got a bunch of reasons for that. Some of them are setbacks with BY. Some of them are the game plan sucks. And to be honest with you, I don't think Canales trusts the offensive line right now, which is why so much of the Panthers offense is quick strike. And it's not time for BY to actually survey the field and see what's up. It's a come up, throw the ball here, as opposed to come up, look at what the defense is doing, find out where the spot is and go find it. That's why Hunter Renfro's catches per game has gone from like 3 or 4 in week 2 down to, what do you have this weekend? 1, maybe 2, because that's the third read guy, which is important for a guy like BY, but the game plan's not there. Here's the point of all of that. BY is not being the leader on offense I need the quarterback to be. right? I'm not seeing him out there taking control of the offense, grabbing face mask, correcting, fixing, encouraging. I'm not seeing that out of Bryce Young. I didn't see a guy who looks like he's overwhelmed. Defensively, I pointed this out, go back and watch the Falcons game. In the second half of that game against Atlanta, that defense looked like 11 dudes who were having the time of their lives. They were talking, jumping, hooting, hollering, grabbing face masks, slamming heads together, whatever. Go back and look at the second half of the Patriots game. They look entirely and completely deflated. Nobody's out there going, let's pick this the crap up, fellas. Like, let's go. Get it together. I don't see that. And so Lonzo and I both reached the same conclusion from Dave Canales' postgame presser, which is the guy's asking for help. The guy's asking for help. Now, what we think the help he's asking for may be different, but we both think he's asking for help. What I think he's asking for help from is the locker room, is the players, is the vets, is the leaders. Somebody. I will stand out here and have all of the heat seekers pointed at me for this depressing 1-3 start. I will take all of the criticism. But while I'm out here doing this, I need somebody in that locker room to step up and be the leader that lights everybody else's ass on fire and gets us in gear, because I can't do that part of it. And I think he's right. I think there are very few head coaches who can. In fact, I don't know that there are any. At the end of the day, if the players aren't willing to kick each other in the pants, you can't get them kicked in the pants. That is a players-only prerogative there. And I don't see it. I say the same thing about the South Carolina Gamecocks. I looked at that team after Lenoris went down in the Vanderbilt game. I didn't see any leadership on that team. I didn't see anybody that was out there busting it, trying to take over, trying to blow that team up and say, let's get it right, get it tight. In fact, quite the opposite. I came back in on that Monday and I said the one thing I never thought I would have to question was the heart of the team. Said that after the Missouri game. You look like you had a little fight, but like nobody stepped up and took over. And that's why Missouri, who had Ahmad Hardy do that, did win that football game. Now, we saw it against Kentucky. We saw some guys that were out there getting after other guys, correcting, moving, encouraging, and after big plays, hyping up the boys. Now, will that carry on a night game in Baton Rouge, Louisiana against the LSU Tigers? I don't know. We'll find out. But it better. And so my question now is going to be for South Carolina, A, for the Clemson Tigers, B, and for the Carolina Panthers, C. Can you fix it? Can you fix the team mentality? If you're South Carolina, it felt like it was fixed last weekend. Can you carry that down to a better opponent on the road in the most difficult place to play in the Southeastern Conference? For Clemson, we don't know if it's gotten fixed, but you've got two chances to get it right between North Carolina and Boston College. Can I have a leader? Can I have somebody that steps up and starts grabbing helmets? Because it hasn't been Cade Klubnik. It hasn't been Antonio Williams. It hasn't been anybody on the offensive line. Can somebody step up, grab a helmet, and be a leader? And for the Panthers, Dave Canales just took all the fire for you for a pathetic showing on Sunday. Granted, a lot of it is his fault and on him, but he just took the fire. Can you take that, have some team leaders step up, organize, get everybody on the same page, and come out looking like a new and renewed team with a very winnable game against the Dolphins this weekend? Your thoughts are welcome. 844-326-3663. The Rob Brown Show rolls on after this. It is The Fan Upstate.
Hey, Alexa, Google, or Siri, play 97 The Fan Upstate.
Let me give you, since we are talking about the concept of team mentality, and I think that it is a large part of the reason that the three teams that we primarily cover on the gridiron, South Carolina, Clemson, and the Carolina Panthers, are in the spots that they are in right now, is because, at least to me, I don't believe I have seen out of any of them a genuinely good team mentality from any of the three. I think the best we saw was against Kentucky out of the Gamecocks this weekend. But I also think that this is why I said yesterday, the goodwill that I had stored up for Dave Canales is gone now. I am now viewing Dave Canales through the same lens that I view every other coach. I will always give, especially a first-year guy, I will always give a new coach plenty of time with a new program or franchise when they take over. Because, as we pointed out with, let's look at the Chicago Bears, Ben Johnson, you have to change a culture. And the overwhelming majority of time that you have to change a culture, it's because the culture's bad. That's why they have a new head coach. Now, every now and then it's because somebody steps away, like Nick Saban. But even still, a culture must be changed because you can't do that guy's culture better than that guy did that culture. Kalen DeBoer cannot be Nick Saban. He's got to be Kalen DeBoer. And the culture has to be based around Kalen DeBoer, which is why it did not shock me that it took some time last year. It did not shock me that it took some time this year, but would you look at that? Bama's going on the road and knocking off Georgia in Athens. Culture shift takes time. And when you are in a spot like in Carolina, where the culture is not an issue exclusively because of the guy that wears the headset and carries the tablet, but because of an institutional issue, it takes even more time. This is why I said when Canales came to Carolina, in comparison to when Ben Johnson got to Chicago, I said I actually believe that Ben Johnson will be better in Chicago. Why? Ben Johnson was the most sought after head coaching candidate in a very long time, which means that Ben Johnson had the ability to call a shot. Any open job he wanted, he could have. And the fact that he took the Chicago job said to me, he's told the McCaskies, I'm running this show. It's your team. I respect it. I understand it. I won't show up in your ivory tower and tell you how to run your business. But you will not tell me how to run my football team. And you have not really seen the McCaskies around Chicago since then. Now, the reason I was optimistic in giving goodwill to Dave Canales, and honestly, more importantly, Dan Morgan, was when they took over, I pointed out after the incident at the bar with Dave Tepper and the bar owner, which I have also said, I don't think was malicious. I think it was a billionaire hedge fund owner who has zero idea of what social skills look like down here with us peons in the real world. I think he was just genuinely trying to go in and have a laugh, but he doesn't understand man on the street style jokes, right? And since then, Tepper disappeared from the limelight. I've asked every host who's made a David Tepper reference to me, when's the last time you heard from David Tepper? Because it's been a year and a half, and I haven't really heard anything yet. Now, maybe he's still pulling the strings behind the scene.
Or maybe he needs to show back up and the team will get better.
I mean, the team's never been good with him there.
What if suddenly he shows back up and his presence is there and the team just starts nonstop winning?
I don't think anybody has belief that would be the
result. Would there have to be public apologies? Would you have to apologize?
I mean, maybe, but I also think that, and this is why I said there is goodwill for Dave Canales and Dan Morgan. I don't think Dan Morgan and Dan Morgan face takes that job if David Tepper says, you report to me and you will get all of transactions approved. I don't think he does.
They're not really winning either way. is my point.
No, I don't disagree. But again, the expectations for me this year were like 7 wins. And granted, we're not on the path for that right now, but that was the expectation. I didn't expect yes, I picked this team to win the division, but that was a best case scenario for me that I thought was very much a possibility. Clearly, we're not there.
No one expected last week.
No one expected last week. And that's the other part is, much like the South Carolina loss to Vandy, it's not that you lost. The Patriots are a good team. That's another team I said bet the over on this year. I'm in on the Panther rebuild or on the Patriot rebuild. It's how you lost. It's getting ran out of the stadium in, I think, what might be the most embarrassing result the Panthers have had in a very long time. So when I hear Dave Canales come out after 4 weeks of this season, after a first full off season, after a full season last year, and after half of an off season the year before that, for him to come out and say, we got to figure out what the identity of this team is. How do you not know that? That's on you. It is on the coach to set the identity. Then it is on the team to figure out how to be that. And I'm not saying that there's no pushback. I mean, you may just one day be like, our identity is quick and fast, and then you look up one day and you realize, oh, we got a bunch of 360-pound monsters on the O-line. Maybe we're a power run team now, right? But the identity of the team, I'm talking about the personality of the team, the charisma of the team, or the lack thereof, Patriots. That is on the coach and the players to work together to set. So when I hear Derek Brown and JT Horn come out and say, if we're going to claim to be a player-led team, which we do, we need players to lead, which we don't right now. If they come out and they look different, great. Then I will say, okay, we are fine. We are in the right direction. I think it should be a personal challenge to Bryce Young. Be the leader you need to be at quarterback. You need to tell the guys on the offensive line what you need to successfully play quarterback. You need to have everyday multiple conversations with your wide receivers to say, here is what you are doing that isn't working. Here's what you're not doing that would work. Here's what you're doing that is working. And here's what you're not doing that doesn't work. And let's make sure that you have developed that chemistry. Because I look at Carolina, Clemson, and South Carolina. South Carolina's first game where they actually looked like they were on the same page with an identity was against Kentucky. That's the first game this year. Not Virginia Tech, not SC State, certainly not Vandy or Mizzou. It's the first time I looked and I said, there's that character. There's that culture. There is that identity that you will have to ride if you want to go from the third tier of the SEC to the second. There's where it is. Would Clemson have had that this weekend if they played UNC? I don't know. I know they play UNC this weekend. I know that they play a UNC team that is reeling. I know that they play a UNC team that is not only reeling, but they aren't good. And I know they play a UNC team that is not only reeling and not good, but are playing for, and this one's subjective, but I'd stand on it, a head coach who clearly is distracted from his duties and responsibilities as the HC of UNC. So this is the game to me where it is on the football team. I said to John Blau yesterday, this isn't a razzle-dazzle game. This isn't a flash game. This isn't a game where I need you coming out and trying all your new passing plays and trying to be fancy and earn some top 10 nominations. I need you to just come out and play flat-out smash-mouth football. Just go beat UNC by being better at fundamental football than they are. That's it. And I need to see, and I will add to that, I need to see some guys that are expected performers, some of the vets on this team, some of the guys that are leaders, the guys that got brought to ACC Media Days, the guys that are expected to be breakout players this year. I need to see you, as I saw out of South Carolina this past Saturday against Kentucky, as I heard but have not yet seen out of the Carolina Panthers. We'll see if it translates to the football field on Sunday. I need to see somebody from that Clemson team on Saturday against North Carolina in their house. I need to see somebody step up and be a leader of that football team to start grabbing face masks and getting the boys correct. Somebody to start slamming shoulder pads when a big play gets made and get the boys hype. And I don't care who it is. You all know who the leaders are supposed to be. But if none of them will, somebody's going to have to. If South Carolina can carry that developed team chemistry I saw against Kentucky to LSU, LSU just lost to Ole Miss. And they lost to Ole Miss because Trinidad Chambliss, who is a poor man's Lenora Sellers. He might be a rich man's Lenora Sellers one day. The dude looks pretty good. But that's Lenore's. You now have the blueprint to go beat LSU. I'm not saying you will. In fact, I'm picking LSU as of today. We got a lot of time between here and the weekend. But I'm saying the blueprint on how to beat LSU is now laid down, and it revolves around Lenora Sellers. So I need him to be a leader, not just to execute, but to get the rest of the boys around him. This is what I need. Let's go do the damn thing. I need the defense to take advantage of an LSU team that will turn the ball over behind Garrett Nussmeier. Go do that. Be leaders. Carolina, I need everything you said. Derek Brown, J.C. Horn, I need everything that you guys said in response to Dave Canales going out there and facing the firing squad on your behalf. Now I need you to put it into practice. You put it into practice, you'll beat the Miami Dolphins. Without Tyreek Hill especially, it's just not a good football team. But only if you put what you said into practice. And as far as Clemson, I just needed to see somebody step up. I need somebody to become that leader. I need somebody to become that guy that starts slapping helmets and shoulder pads and saying, look, there's no crowd here to boo us. We're on the road. All we have is us. So let's be us. And if you do that, you're probably fine. You're probably fine. You get 2 bounce back games with UNC and Boston College. Then you've got SMU, who isn't who they were last year, but you better believe they want to come get you again and prove that they are still a front runner in the ACC. You got 2 get right spots against UNC and Boston College. I don't need anything fancy. Smash mouth traditional football, and show me a couple of dudes who will start grabbing face masks and take over and rebuild team chemistry that for years was the hallmark of this Clemson Tiger team. And so far this season seems to have completely gone MIA.
Because you're an all-star. Get your game on. Go play.
Go to break. Hey, now we're late for our net. It is it's Smash Mouth. Now I'm going to go listen to Smash Mouth today. He's Lonzo. I'm Rob. This is the Rob Brown Show on the Fan Upstate.
Your AM adrenaline rush. It's the Rob Brown Show on the Fan.
Upstate.
I'm Chuck Sanders.
Upstate, 97.7 FM Greenville, 97.1 FM Spartanburg.
Always live on the free Odyssey app. Now, the Infinity Sports Network. Text or call. One number does it all. 844-326-3663. That's 844-FAN-PHONE. This is the Rod Brown Show on the Fan Upstate.
The Arkansas Razorbacks got every inch of it handed to them by the Notre Dame Fighting Irish this weekend. They came down to Arkansas and just smoked the Razorbacks. So bad, in fact, that the Razorbacks immediately fired now former head coach Sam Pittman. Now, that's not entirely unsurprising because preseason, I put together my list of coaches entering the season on the hot seat. Brent Pry was one. He's been fired. Sam Pittman was I thought, likely the coach in the SEC who was on the shortest hot seat coming into the season. They opened up 2-0 blowout victories, but against Alabama, A&M, and Arkansas State, nothing impressive. 3 consecutive losses to Ole Miss, Memphis, and number 22, Notre Dame. Sam Pittman was fired because of it, the 2-3 start, but obviously the culmination of having Notre Dame come into Fayetteville and have their way with you. And they fired him. Now, this is what is very interesting to me because there are just moments that you want to say to someone, you should stop talking now. One of the things that becomes a very valuable skill as you grow as a communicator is learning, and I say this in the classiest possible way, to shut the up sometimes. Just shut up. Just stop, right? Make your point, make your pitch, and then shut up because you can only talk yourself down from wherever you talked yourself up to. Arkansas fired Sam Pittman. Understand it. Understand it. You lost to Memphis and you got hammered by 2 ranked teams. I get it. Here's where Arkansas Athletic Director Hunter Yurachek probably needed to grab his boot and insert it squarely into his own mouth. In the press conference on Monday, after Sam Pittman was released from his job, Yurachek, talking to the assembled media, said, quote, "You were at the board meeting, and I gave you some statistics where our head coach compensation, our assistant coach salary pool, our support staff salary pool, and our overall operating budget ranked toward the bottom of the Southeastern Conference. I think with that information, Coach Pittman did not have the resources he needed to appropriately compete in this conference right now." Hunter, I have a question for you. In what world can you say that and then believe in any way, shape, or form that you are competitive with other Power 4 schools for any attractive head coaching options that may be on the table next year? How can you say that and believe that if there is a coordinator out there who at the end of this year is going to be believed to be the reason that a team is going to make a run, if there is this year's Kalen DeBoer, who takes a considered middle-of-the-pack team from a lower-level Power 4 and guides them to a, I don't know, conference championship, playoff berth, maybe a playoff berth in a win or two, in what world would that guy, who is now being looked at by the entirety of college football as a hot prospect for being a head coach, what's your sales pitch to that guy now? What's your sales pitch to that guy? Hey, coach, listen, I know that a few weeks ago when we fired Sam Pittman after losing to 2 ranked teams, and also Memphis, I know after we fired Sam Pittman that I got on a microphone and I said that we did not provide our head coach with the resources needed to compete in the best division, the best conference in all of football. But we believe that you can. We would like you to come to Arkansas and to take over a budget that I myself said isn't good enough for a coach to win with, and come on down and win. Let me put it this way. There's a couple of guys right now that I personally very genuinely hope stick it out with the small schools that they are at. Brent Key at Virginia Tech, Clark Lee at Vanderbilt. I have made it no secret that these two guys, and add PJ Fleck to that list as well at Minnesota. I've made it no secret that I love these dudes because I am currently enamored with a group of coaches that I lovingly and adoringly refer to as football dudes. Football dudes. Dudes who understand and can win at football because they are good at football. Georgia Tech right now, despite a close game against Wake Forest, statistically, is the front seat driver for an ACC championship game this year. Which, by the way, you will recall Rob Brown did tell you take out a bet for Georgia Tech to be in the ACC title game this year. But hey, what am I, just a jackass with a microphone? So, if Brent Key gets Georgia Tech there, or what about Clark Lee? What if Vandy beats Alabama in Alabama this weekend? I don't think they're going to, because I think Bama has found another gear. But theoretically, what would happen if Clark Lee takes the doors down to Tuscaloosa and blows the doors off of Alabama and they win this game and they become a top 10, top 9, top 8, top 7 team? What happens if Vanderbilt is in the driver's seat for an SEC championship game appearance and Clark Lee decides, I love you, Vandy. I appreciate you giving me this opportunity, but I must strike while the iron is hot and I want it out of there? They're going to be looked at by a lot of teams. And there's not a lot of top-tier Power 4 teams right now that look like they are in a position of desire to remove their head coach and move on. Maybe that changes if one of those two guys becomes available, but there's not a lot of them. So what happens if there's only a few and Clark Lee takes Vandy to the SEC title game and then goes, I want to move up to a bigger school. I would like to move up. I'd like to take a step up in competition. Do you think he's going to come to Arkansas, even if he has succeeded with a Vanderbilt budget? He now knows that he can go to a school that has a real budget. Do you think Arkansas is now in play when you just acknowledged out loud into 1,000 microphones to put out over the internet that you don't provide your coaches with the resources necessary to win? If Brent Key takes Georgia Tech to the ACC title game in a playoff run, and he goes, you know what? I've had all the fun that I can have here at Georgia Tech. I love my school, but I want to prove how good I am. Therefore, I want to go coach in the Southeastern Conference. I want to go to the SEC. Well, Florida's going to be open for a job at the end of the year because I can't see Billy Napier surviving. Let me ask you a question. If Florida's open for a job right now and Arkansas is open for a job right now, you are already going to be behind the 8 ball in that competition. And now you are telling coaches across these great United States of America, hey guys, we don't give you the resources that you need to be successful here. And if we do not give you the resources that you need to quote, appropriately compete in this conference right now, and we feel like you do not compete in the conference, despite the fact that we ourselves are admitting that we did not give you the resources to compete in this conference, do you know what happens? We fire you. That's what happens. We don't give you the resources necessary to do the job. Therefore, you don't do the job. Therefore, we fire you. If you're Clark Lee or you're Brent Key and Florida and Arkansas are open right now, can you even consider Arkansas after this statement?
See, I get all that, and I understand you're probably not going to get a top name, but someone will take that job.
Oh, sure. Sure. Somebody's going to take the job. Not anybody who's a proven commodity. Your best bet now, if you are Arkansas, you know what you've just done? You have lowered yourself to Georgia Tech and Vanderbilt. How many head coaches did Georgia Tech go through before they found Brent Key?
What are the expectations in Arkansas? When have they ever been a player, period? I mean, as far as winning the SEC or winning a national championship.
I mean, they've had some good years there.
I'm just saying that there's not a tradition of that kind of winning there.
I don't disagree, but like when Darren McFadden was there, they had a good football team.
When was that?
A long time ago. But I think the point is, haven't we always said that about Vanderbilt? Where are the doors right now? Haven't we always said that about Georgia Tech? Where are the rec right now? The point is, it can be done even at small schools. The reason it's not done consistently at small schools is because when somebody shows up and they do it at a small school, they immediately get $1 billion from a big school to go coach them instead. So when Billy Napier takes Louisiana and they're on their way up and you're like, damn, that team could not just be a bowl team. They could go get a Power 4 team. And then he immediately goes to Florida. That's where Arkansas needs to be, the school that can take the best coaches from the feeder schools and say, you coach us now because here's all this money to do it. And now their AD is openly and into a microphone with his whole ass chest, 10 toes in the sand saying, not only can we not pay you, not only can we not provide you the resources you need to do what we want you to do, but if you don't do what we want you to do, when we don't give you the resources to do it, we will fire you. Not great, Bob.
The Rob Brown Show presents Twitter.
Okay, chest and toes in the sand? Is he laying face down in the sand?
10 toes in the sand.
Okay.
Say it with your whole chest.
Okay, so you're still standing upright. So your chest is not in the sand.
Say it with your whole chest.
You're going to hurt yourself. All right, the first thing that's Xing is Tyreek Hill.
Tyreek Hill Xing because the Dolphins, while they did win their first game last night to improve to 1-3, Tyreek Hill suffered a gruesome injury, a dislocated knee, which usually comes with a host of damage to tendons and ligaments throughout the knee.
Been some other reports, according to Ian Rappaport, he tore his ACL and multiple other ligaments.
Yep.
And he had surgery today, but may end up with more surgeries. None of his 2026 salary is guaranteed.
Woof. That's what happens when you act a fool.
But
Rick.
$11 million becomes fully guaranteed if he's on the roster in March.
I mean,
plus a $5 million roster bonus. So not only did he wreck his knee, he may be off the team just so the team could save money.
Correct.
Especially since he wouldn't be back next year.
That is 1,000% correct. This is why at the end of the year last year, when he walked off and dropped the deuces, and then the rest of the boys said, hey, if you want back in, you have to show you're a consummate team professional, and he hasn't done that. In fact, has only gotten into more trouble. He created this world for himself. I'm sorry that this happened to his knee. Nobody should lose their career because of an injury. It sucks and it happens. But for all of the stuff that comes away from the injury, Tyreek did it to himself.
All right. The next thing is Xing is Shedeur Sanders.
Okay. I don't know if there is more commentary. What I do know is Shedeur Sanders last week did another in front of his locker speech where he said, I can be a starting quarterback. I can be good. Rex Ryan went off on that. And he said, look, dude, if you want us to believe that, then friggin' act like it. Stop giving locker room, front of your locker monologues about how you're better and nobody wants to give you a chance and blah, blah, blah. And get out there and learn the playbook and practice and win the damn job. And I got to tell you, I said, I don't have any issues with Shedeur. I think he needs to be humbled. I hope the draft would do that. It kind of felt like maybe it did, maybe it didn't. I don't know. What I will say is this. I applaud, and I don't do this very often, I applaud Rex Ryan because everybody, here's why. Because A, he's right, and because everybody else on those shows was kissing Shedeur's booty cheeks about how, it's really bold of him to get up there and make this proclamation and put himself on the radar. He got drafted. Of course he's on the radar.
Bold for an ex-coach going after a third-string quarterback. That's bold right there.
There is a difference.
Are they asking Shedeur questions and he's answering them? Or is he calling a press conference? Is he asking people, hey, come to my locker so I can talk to you? People, reporters are going and asking him questions.
Correct. And you know what you don't have to do? Answer them that way. It is up to you what you say. It doesn't matter what the question is.
There's only one pompous person in this story, and that's Rex Ryan.
I disagree. I think it is Shedeur Sanders. I am with Team Rex Ryan on this one. You got asked about your role on the team. The best thing to do there, as much as I hate team speak, is to go, look, I'm the third string quarterback. I'd like to move up to the first string. I'm committing myself to getting better and working on my craft every day. Instead, he said, I'm a starter and I got to get my chance. It's like, yeah, dude, but
Wow,
you know who else says that?
that's-
Every other quarterback in the NFL.
Exactly. Every other quarterback says that in the NFL, but he's getting chastised for it. All right. The next thing that's Xing is Rusev.
Rusev. Is it Rusev Day?
Well,
The answer is yes. Every day is Rusev
every
Day.
day is Rusev Day.
Every day is Rusev Day except Lana Day.
Well, that's true.
Lana Day is Lana Day.
All right. So last night on Raw, he went up against Dom Mysterio for the title, and Dom did some Eddie Guerrero stuff and won the match. Yes.
Did he hit him with a belt and then pretend like he didn't hit him
No,
with a
he
belt?
tried that, but the referee saw it. And
Ah.
so the referee tried to take the belts away, and somehow Dom got turned around and he did the backwards groin shot to Rusev and then got him.
Okay. I'm
Yeah.
here for it.
And
I gotta
that's
get
pretty
caught
good.
up. It's been a couple weeks.
You
I
gotta
gotta
check
get
it
caught
out. All right. And finally, the last thing that's Xing is Creed.
Can you take me? Okay. I don't know that this is why this is Xing, but this is my suspicion because I saw it last night. They announced Bad Bunny is the halftime show performer, and then a bunch of, I'll say, right-wing influencers on the internet said, we should do our own alternate halftime show. We don't
Okay.
like the Bugs Bunny.
All right.
Bugs Bunny.
I didn't see any of the political stuff. I just saw a bunch of people wanted to see Creed rather than Bad Bunny.
Yeah, here's
I don't
why.
know.
Because Bad Bunny has obviously been a loud and vocal opponent of Donald Trump. So a lot of
Has
right
he?
wing. Yes, he
I-
has.
okay.
I'm telling you, this isn't like I'm asking. I'm telling you.
Okay.
He has
All
been
right.
a loud and vocal critic of Donald Trump, and a lot of people on the Republican side have said we don't want to
All right.
celebrate that.
Well,
so
forget Bad
let's
Bunny.
do our own alternate halftime show, and let's book Creed to do it.
Dude, I don't want to see either one of them. So I don't care.
I'll take all the Creed shows I can get. I don't care why it's for. All right, that's it for us. Thanks for being here. I hope you enjoyed the show. If you didn't, let's be honest, it's your own fault. Come back. We'll try harder
And I
tomorrow.
apologize for giving them an opportunity to get political. We made it through the whole show. I didn't realize it was political. I got to do better research.
Got to do better, Lonzo. Got to do better. Thanks for being here. I hope you enjoyed it. Come back tomorrow. We'll try harder. We start looking ahead to the weekend upcoming. We'll give you some college and NFL power rankings tomorrow on the show and have day one of the Major League playoffs in the books. He's Lonzo. I'm Rob. See you back here tomorrow on the Rob Brown Show in the Fan Upstate. Later.
And what do you know? We got a couple haters.
Never miss a big moment with Rewind on the Odyssey app. Relive big moments. It's Rewind on the Fan Upstate.
At Ingles, we're proud to sponsor area athletics at all levels.
All right, homies and homettes. Your boys got a jet, got a meeting
Celebrate
with the big boss at 11, so I got to go get ready for that. Appreciate you guys being here. Hope you have a lovely rest of your whatever today is. Tuesday, I think. I'm going to go Tuesday. Have a great rest of your Tuesday. We'll see you back here tomorrow. Tell your friends about us. Goodbye.
Like you guys.